Part 323. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3235. The next day, Jiarong found his sick son and was immediately furious. This son is too unworthy of his father. Thinking back to when I married my wife who was a reporter. Ahem. It doesn't seem to be much better. Because the relationship with his father was not harmonious at the beginning, he could not sleep all night long, for fear that his father would disapprove of his wife. Well, that's all. Jiarong helplessly patted his son to comfort him. No matter what, he is still his son. And if you really get married in the future, you should be able to grow up and have less worries. Preparations for the wedding are in full swing. For the strong men in the universe, they really act in such a hasty manner. Arranging weddings and the like is just a matter of whether they are willing to do so. If they want to be lively, it would not be wrong to invite them 10 years in advance. 10 years later, the entire starfield will be filled with guests. What a weird situation. But if you only have a few days, it is not impossible to make it grand. But time was still too urgent, so Jiarong was so busy that his feet could not touch the ground, and his mouth was on fire. A few days later, the trade area ushered in a bustling flow of people. A large number of people flocked to the passage hall of the trade area, either waiting to receive returning guests or preparing to receive goods. Some of them simply came to see the world. See how the trade area is connected with the trains in the other world. Woo! A long train, dragging endless carriages, travels from the depths of subspace. Everyone who was waiting stretched their necks, and those with experience jumped off the platform, and got as close as possible to where the train was going to stop, despite being blocked by the guards. Boom boom boom. Accompanied by screams from the subspace, the train stopped outside the bright glass room, and a large number of life forms of all kinds began to swim among the crowd. The moment the train door opened, the sound suddenly rose to countless heights. When purchasing specialties from the other world, I want every plant and tree, and the prices are favorable. Is there anyone who sells goods from the other world? The high-end ones are the best. If you don't have high-end ones, buy everything. Son, are you back? Dad is here. Welcome Mr. Tai. The company is here, please come over if you see it. Hey, don't squeeze in, okay? We're not rushing to get on the bus, what's the benefit of squeezing to the front? You guys. The entire waiting room was bustling with people, whether they were small creatures as small as earthlings or domain lord level beings as large as tens of kilometers, they were all drifting with the crowd. Several outsiders who were just waiting to watch the excitement were also shocked by the scene. Is this the trade area? It's more lively than we imagined. It's really lively, but, according to the strength of scientific and technological civilization, it should be possible to make this place more orderly and peaceful. Why is this trade zone deliberately like this? Hey, you don't know this, right? I heard that Mr. Jia Yan put forward this proposal after reading the construction draft of the trade zone. He said it was trade. If it is not lively enough, how can we trade without that kind of fireworks? If the taste is gone, the price of the entire trade will drop, so that's it? Is that so? It seems that that gentleman is also a wonderful person. These are observers from the 5 major alliances. There are also beings the size of earthlings among them, and they are quite powerful. They appear to be the size of earthlings. Precisely because of their concealment due to their size, they are powerful enough for senior domain lords to come and join in the fun. After all, if it were an ordinary senior domain lord, he would be at least 30 or 40 kilometers tall. Even if he were placed here, he would be too eye-catching. This group of people had experienced the rush of the train arriving at the station, and then they felt the atmosphere of rushing to the front of the train, and after the train arrived at the station, they directly disappeared into the waiting room at the back. Sure enough, I can't feel any breath. That Jia Yan's strength is real. If we can feel his aura casually, then he is not a powerful person in the lower level of the territory lord. We are the powerful person in the lower level. That's right, but I don't know whether this person is using his real body or a clone for his return this time. If he is still a clone, then his level is not enough. 6 powerful late-level domain lords have arrived from our 5 major forces. If this one were to be greeted by a clone, it would indeed be a bit off. But it's also our fault for not warning us in advance. Anyway, the purpose of those adults is just to enter the other world. Whether he comes in his true form or not is irrelevant at all. Several masters above the domain lord level were whispering, but they didn't expect that the content of these chats would be heard clearly by a black-haired figure of an earthling walking beside them. Pretending to be pushed around in the crowd for a moment, Black God Jia Yan put on a smile and retreated into the lounge. Just dragging the car back to the Milky Way, he immediately felt a few strange auras in the waiting room that were above the domain lord level, so he took advantage of the crowd and blended into the crowd of people getting off the car. And because of his size advantage, he didn't attract anyone's attention at all. Are they masters from the 5 major alliances, and they said that there are 6 masters? Could it be that they are the lower ranks of the 6 major domain lords? Black God Jia Yan was a little solemn and sent a message in the lounge. Not long after, Jia Rong and several other senior officials arrived. Dad, has your true body not returned this time? Jia Rong was a little disappointed. There has been a lot of pressure in the trade area these days. After all, the 6 masters who came here have all reached the lower level of territory lord. However, there is no one of the same level in the trade area, even though seniors Edisha and Leda have already shown their abilities. Although they have shown enough neither humility nor arrogance, it is inevitable that the momentum will be suppressed. Well, there should be a problem that needs to be dealt with on Mommy's side. Please tell me about the situation. Jia Rong and several senior executives started talking about the recent events in a polite manner. Oh? So, they should have come with good intentions, and they are willing to follow me into the other world after Xiao 11's wedding. This is not good intentions. That's true. These seniors have stayed in the rest area arranged by us and have followed the etiquette very much. Having said this, several senior executives were satisfied. If it were them, when they were so much stronger than the other party, they would have shown off their power, watched whatever they wanted, and done whatever they wanted. How could there be so much respect? Jia Yan looks at the problem from a different angle. Their respect for each other is definitely not for nothing. How friendly they are now, how many things they will ask for when entering the other world in the future. Hey, these guys may not be so easy to deal with. Dad, you have been working hard in the outside world for so long, you can't let these outsiders pick the peaches. That's definitely not the case, and I think their main purpose is definitely not to pick peaches. Black God Jia Yan assessed the situation and said calmly. Not picking peaches. Jia Rong was a little confused. Because after the emergence of the 5 major forces, they have been showing interest in many benefits of the trade zone, and even extorted many shares. This is not about seeking benefits. I have told you a long time ago. You have never been to the Galaxy Central Star Territory. You don't know how rich these big forces in the Galaxy Central Star Territory are. They don't look down on such petty profits, or in other words, they don't know how rich they are. It's not because of this that they got into conflict with our 3 masters. So they must have an ulterior motive. What purpose could it be? Monk Jia Rongjiang was confused. Black God Jia Yan was silent and didn't say anything. Nowadays, many people know that there are opportunities in the other world, but they don't know that the other world is even a treasure place for the promotion of masters of the lower level of domain masters. He didn't want to say more about this matter. Although it was something recorded by many ancient forces, if possible, he should spread it as little as possible, lest it become widely known and all kinds of ghosts and snakes would come out. In fact, what they are afraid of is not the strong ones, but ordinary domain lords, and even ordinary galaxy-level ones. Although they are not strong enough, they are also a security risk in large numbers. After all, the overall strength of the trade area is still far from enough. Xiao 11 is getting married. You don't have to worry about these powerful people anymore. Just let me take care of Xiao 11's wedding. I really want to enjoy my grandson's banquet. Haha, okay, I will make sure everything is properly arranged for you. Jiarong smiled and agreed. The others also smiled. If there is anything that makes people feel happy under the pressure at this time, it must be Jia 11's wedding. This direct son from the Jia family can be regarded as the most popular person in the entire trading area recently. Many of his deeds have even begun to be published in books, and some people even wrote about him under a pseudonym. Of course, Jia 11's name is definitely not the same. I will write it out plainly, otherwise I will end up waiting to drink tea in a small dark room. Anyway, ghosts and monsters have appeared, so Jia 11 has to go out without makeup recently, otherwise the possibility of being recognized is extremely high. Grandpa, are you back? Ha ha ha, my groom's grandson, are you happy these days? Hee hee, I'm happy, but I can't sleep well. I always feel that things are not going so smoothly. Don't worry, your grandpa is here. No matter how bad things happen, Grandpa can calm him down. Jia Yan is really not talking nonsense. The six masters obviously did not come to make trouble, and the person on one side of the marriage was also their own little princess. If someone really made trouble, they would lose face, so not only would they not make trouble, but they would help maintain order. With the help of masters from the lower ranks of the six major domain masters, Jia Yan really didn't believe that there was any existence that could cause trouble, unless there was a peerless master like Tai's Hang. After meeting Jia 11 and other Jia family members again, Black God Jia Yan could no longer use the excuse of rest to escape. He announced the arrangement that he would meet with several masters at the pickup facility in the trade area. As a result, the entire trade area suddenly increased its alert level by several levels. A meeting between masters is definitely a big news. Even though the trade area has been completely renewed recently due to the arrival of these 5 major forces, and the police are very strict about everything, but a meeting like this, the level on top of this, even several places where people gather have been banned from entering, for the sake of stability during the meeting, otherwise the trade area will be embarrassed. Among the 6 masters, there is one who looks extremely familiar. It was the powerful second-level domain lord who had a head-on confrontation with his clone Jia Yan that day. When Jia Yan saw the other party entering the reception hall among the 6 masters, his eyes collided with the other party for a moment, and he showed a slight smile. There was also a smile on the other party's expressionless expression. This is probably called letting go of grudges with a smile. But no one knows what he thinks in his heart. I've met a few friends. I can't get away from the rest of the world these days. Please forgive me if I don't treat guests well. No, Your Excellency Jia Yan is busy with official business, and it's our fault that we still come to bother you. Everyone started chatting and seemed to be in a happy mood. After casually chatting about some topics, even mentioning the style of the trade area and the aesthetics of the facilities, the topic officially entered the topic. Your Excellency Jia Yan, I believe you are also aware that in our galaxy, there have been rumors that have been circulating since ancient times. Beings like us who are stuck in the lower levels of domain lords, if we have the opportunity to enter the other world, we may gain access to higher strength. The key, I wonder if you have verified this rumor since you have been in this world for so long. A behemoth with a height of 70 kilometers directly entered the topic of questioning. The black god Jia Yan knows its deep meaning. This is a trap for the information he has gained from being in this world for so many years. How could he reveal this kind of information so easily after spending decades and countless manpower and material resources on it? So he shook his head and spoke vaguely, "I'm sorry, although I have learned this information a long time ago and have been verifying it in the other world, but after so many years, I still haven't been able to grasp even a scrap of relevant verification information. But one thing is certain." He sold it out. All the masters of the lower realm masters present stretched their necks, with expressions of eagerness to hear what he was going to say next. After going around for a while, someone finally expressed dissatisfaction with his pedantic behavior and said, "Your Excellency Jia Yan, to be honest, we and the other 5 major alliances are doing business and alliance with you because we are interested in the access and intelligence of the world here. If you are so secretive, it would be too boring. We could have more cooperation and exchanges in the future, but wouldn't everything be in vain? Yes, Your Excellency Jia Yan, you have to take a long-term view. Although you have decades of information and resources in your hands, we are 6 masters. In the subsequent power background, there may even be another one." Replying to the experts, "With such a trend, it would be a good thing to cooperate with you, right? Why are you so indifferent?" Someone comforted me. And Black God Jia Yan's eyes suddenly brightened. In fact, he was waiting for similar words. After arranging his thoughts, he changed the subject. "Now that this friend has said it, I will speak frankly. I said it was cooperation, but the terms and content of the cooperation agreed last time were a bit vague. After all, several people were also involved at the time. If you are not present, your subordinates will not be able to make arrangements for you. Now that you are present, we will continue the unfinished business." Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3236. He smiled and said, "You also said that I have information in my hands and many resources in the other world. The reason is very simple. That is, I have been involved in the other world for decades before you. Although I don't know much about it, I say I know everything, but I also know a lot, and I also have a lot of personal connections and many non-material resources. After all, things like favors are useful wherever they are placed, right?" The 6 masters remained silent. They probably thought of what Jia Yan wanted to say. Sure enough, Jia Yan said to himself, "In that case, should we formulate a rule between us, that is, after entering there, you will cooperate with me as much as possible, instead of fighting each other, or doing your own thing. Such forces and the like will not only consume your energy and time, but also put huge competitive pressure on our trade area. After all, when you enter the other world, you are not the one who used to gain profits, are you? Open your fists, and every finger will. They are weak and powerless, but if they are put together in one place, they become a more powerful force." The master of subspace talent put on an expression that understood everything and said, "So, do you want me to listen to your orders?" No one else spoke, but they all looked at Jia Yan with playful expressions. "I just want to see how this avatar speaks. To bluntly say that you want them to be your subordinates would be a bit arrogant. But if you don't dare to say it, wouldn't it be overturning your previous words and making people look down on you for no reason?" Jia Yan shook his head leisurely. "He will certainly not fall for the trick and say something offensive. Actually, you don't have to be so resistant. That's not what I mean. Let's put it this way. If you haven't personally experienced the world there, you will never be able to understand the majesty there by just relying on hearsay. As long as you go there in person, you will be able to understand it. You will discover your own insignificance and your reverence for heaven and earth. I definitely do not mean to restrict you. If you have your own ideas, you can leave anytime, anywhere. Even after you have mastered more knowledge and insights about the inner world, you can also leave at any time. This is definitely not a superior-subordinate relationship, but cooperation. Before you are familiar with the world, it is just cooperation. Jia Yan was sure that these people who were showing off their power here and claiming to be super masters would have an illusion of being extremely insignificant after going to the other world. Regardless of whether their own strength is at the top in the other world, the unique environment and size of life forms in the other world will naturally give them this feeling. Jia Yan has been working hard in the other world for decades, but he still often has such thoughts. He doesn't believe that this group of guys who are trying it for the first time will not feel this way. Okay, we understand what you mean, but it's really too much to ask us to obey your orders. How about this? Since we want you to help us enter the other world, before we are completely familiar with the world there, it's up to you to help us adapt, and when we are fully adapted, we can leave on our own and do what we want, but we will also maintain a friendly and mutually supportive relationship with the trade zone from now on. How about that? Nature is wonderful. Jia Yan nodded with satisfaction. In fact, what he wants is not much at all. When these well-informed local people enter the other world, he is afraid that these people will disrupt certain actions belonging to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. If he allows them to join his subordinates for a period of time, not only will he have the more advantage of the available power is that this group of guys who have some interests know how the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce operates and the benefits to everyone. They must have experienced the necessity of the existence of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, and they will not do it right in the future. Something bad happened to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Both sides achieve what they want. After reaching an agreement, it is natural to help and love each other, and the first event is the marriage. After establishing a relationship, the most appropriate and effective way is to get married. With the approval of the bosses on both sides, the preparations for the wedding were like riding on a rocket. Not only did the level of luxury increase by one level, but the level of attendees also increased by several levels. The preparations in full swing dazzled the local residents. Many people who didn't know the situation now knew what it meant to spend money like water, and now they knew that this was how marriages in top living families could be done. It's just a wedding, but it actually cost about a year's GDP of the trade area. Is this still called a wedding? This is called Qianli. Even Jia 11, the person involved, felt that she had heard wrong after knowing the expenses spent on her wedding. It would be great if this money could be used as starting capital for the young couple in their future marriage. It's a pity that his idea is unlikely to come true, because this wedding is not just for their husband and wife. Under the spotlight of everyone, the wedding was elevated to a higher level and started smoothly. On this day, the construction facilities of the entire trade zone were upgraded to a higher level. More bigwigs came to watch the ceremony. Even senior domain lords who did not have a particularly good relationship with the trade zone, as long as they were in the surrounding area, all rushed to this trade zone within half a month. There is no way, they can't come, because there are several boss-level beings from the Galaxy Central Star region who have issued an ultimatum to them. If they don't come, they will be responsible for the consequences in the future. It was a threat, but there was no clear explanation of what the consequences would be. It's all up to your imagination. Because of these ultimatums, the surrounding experts could not sleep at night. At least 90% of them rushed to the trade area all night long, and even prepared generous gifts. After all, it is said that this trade area is now married to the top forces in the Galaxy Central Star region. The trade students who are already arrogant among the others are supported by several times more domain masters and lower-level masters out of thin air. And they, this group of beings, the strongest one is no more than a senior domain lord. Do you dare not come? Congratulations. We rejoice together. From now on, our forces must have good interactions with each other. Those who came here today are friends. Our trade zone welcomes everyone to make money together in the future. The senior executives of the trade zone can be said to be very proud today. The trade area belongs to the power that does business. In the past, their strength was too high. Is it impossible to conquer all the areas surrounding the entire spiritual realm just because of their strength? That is not called a businessman, but a powerful force. And once you do this, how will your business partners who are beyond your reach think of you? Will they dare to do business with you in the future? Therefore, the trade zone not only did not take action against these unfriendly forces before, but was constrained by these forces in many aspects, and even behaved a bit cowardly. But today, the situation is different. With the endorsement of the large forces in the galaxy's central star region, the entire trade area is like leaning on a big tree. It really feels like becoming the master once again. Boom boom boom. A large number of fireworks exploded in the starry sky around the trade area, and the power of these fireworks is not only used for fireworks, each one can explode on the Earth in a ball of terrifying lethality that will destroy the people of the Earth. Things of this level were just ordinary fireworks in Gia 11 and Xiando's wedding. The trade area is bustling with people. Son, you can't be embarrassed. Today is your big day. If you make a fool of yourself because of nervousness, it will not only be your problem, it will also be an embarrassment to our Geo family. It will also be an embarrassment to your grandfather. Do you understand me? Jiarong opened a large formation and let his son and himself fly in the formation, enjoying the observation and gaze of a large number of people. But when he looked at his son next to him, who was a little nervous and didn't know where to put his hands and feet, he couldn't help but feel angry. I know, but it's better to be nervous when you should be nervous. Gia 11 couldn't laugh or cry. In the past, when he was high on the earth, he thought that he was accustomed to the glory he enjoyed as a member of the Geo family and was not afraid of living in the spotlight. But now he realized that what he thought was a habit was just a small scene. The scene was big enough, but he still had to be nervous. Don't talk about him, even Jiarong, who is leading his son to fly in the starry sky and enjoying the admiration of countless people, is still sweating in his hands. Under the constant attention of all kinds of eyes, the father and son gradually descended on a huge platform. On the platform, there was an arrogant woman in a white wedding dress. She was looking up at the father and son who fell from the sky with a gorgeous outfit that she had never seen before in her life. Next to her were her close relatives and maids, each in their own costumes. This custom comes from the wedding culture of the galaxy's central star region. When the two parties were drawing up the wedding agenda, Jia Yan agreed with a wave of his hand to abide by the other party's marriage culture. Otherwise, should we still adopt the regional marriage customs? Play music, or come to a church to find a priest? It's all a bit nonsense, so it's better to just follow the other person's marriage customs. After all, their culture is more ancient and they appear to be more cultivated. Is this my future husband? Xiando looked even more graceful today. She looked up at him and looked at her future husband falling from the sky. I don't know if I feel uncomfortable or happy inside. All in all, a mixed bag of flavors. She was originally quite resistant to this kind of arranged marriage, but for her, growing up in a strong family, the only marriage waiting for her was this model. Today, if it wasn't Gia 11, it would be Long 11, or East and West, North and West. Anyway, there will definitely be a marriage designated by the elders in the family. At this point, she feels better about Gia 11. It's a done deal, and even if she doesn't like it, she can't change anything. Besides, Gia 11 is not a vulgar young master. On the contrary, it feels a little fresh. That's all, let him be my husband. I hope this marriage of mine can last for a long time and be happy. As a child of a family with many superpowers, she didn't dare to expect a once-in-a-lifetime wedding, because it was impossible to love only one person forever in a life that lasted thousands or even tens of thousands of years. The elders in the family each have a lot of weddings. She only hopes that this first marriage can be happy. Clatter. Father and son landed. At the same time, the fireworks ushered in the craziest moment. Countless fireworks exploded in colorful colors with the power that could blow up the earth, and the whole world was colorful. The explosion of the largest firework formed a circle of heart shapes, and it lasted for a long time in the vacuum of the universe, at least for decades. I'm here to greet you, my favorite princess. I wonder if you can marry me. Gia 11 suppressed her heart pounding and spoke the lines she had rehearsed several times. I do. Xi and Do looked at Gia 11, who was also carefully dressed, and felt that this young man from the countryside had a pure and unpretentious handsomeness. After her heart beat uncontrollably, she smiled happily. This smile can be said to be the colorless beauty of the sixth palace, and it would not be an exaggeration to say that it would captivate a country. Jia Rongdu lamented that his wife, Jia 11's mother, was not as beautiful as his son's wife. How could Xiao 11 be so lucky to be able to hold such a beautiful woman in her arms? Puff. Jia 11 held back her excitement and hugged Xi and Do Qinkaiu into her arms. Then she hugged the princess, and the formation under her feet automatically unfolded again, and this time without Jia Rong's operation, it relied on Jia 11's own strength to push it. Taking off with the formation. The speed is getting faster and faster. The pair of wall figures are hovering in the entire trade area, enjoying the blessings of countless ordinary people and experts below. This scene is like the wedding that all women dream of, so sacred, yet lively and romantic. Next time, do you agree to teach me how to play that game again? Xi and Do was in Jia 11's arms, with a pretty face that was shy and timid, and her face was flushed. Even a powerful and well-informed princess is not immune to being affected by such a scene, and her blush shows her true feelings. Okay. I will take you to play more and more fun games in the future. Then, can we still go to settle in the central star field of the Milky Way? Xi and Do asked again. Jia 11 hesitated this time, and then nodded heavily. It will definitely be possible, even if it is not possible recently. In a few years, I will definitely ask my grandfather to let us out. Isn't it the central star territory? Even the more distant eastern star, we can find time to go there. Even if you want to travel throughout the galaxy, I will accompany you, even to the ends of the earth. Xi and Do Fang's heart trembled. She looked for Xu Yuan and quietly buried her head in Jia 11's arms. This kid is not embarrassed at all. Jia Rong's voice came to Jia Yan's ears. Jia Yan didn't look back, grinned and said, "Son, stop hiding and wipe away your tears. The trembling in your voice betrays you." I didn't cry." Jia Rong rolled his eyes at his father angrily, and then wiped the corners of his eyes calmly. The woman next to him smiled and looked at him. Jia Rong also stretched out his hand and held the woman's fingers tightly. This is Jia 11's biological mother, the big reporter who took the time to come here. Jia Yan, on the other hand, looked at each other with the beautiful woman next to him who was no less beautiful than his grandson's daughter-in-law, and both of them smiled while looking at each other. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3237. Satsamakan also came to attend his grandson's wedding. Jia Yan and his wife have not seen each other for decades, which does not affect their relationship, but makes them more familiar and in love with each other. The wedding of the direct descendants of the Jia family was a complete success. And just before the wedding came to an end, Black God Jia Yan took some time to carry out the array gene optimization for several Jia family members or marriage partners. Because they are clones, they cannot completely become perfect array gene talents, but this is already the next best solution. It cannot be said that Jia Yan is heartless and unjust, but that there is a distinction between closeness and distance. This is the way Jia Yan conducts himself in the world today. The reason for helping them optimize their formation genes is also very simple. In Jia Yan's opinion, his wife Satsumaken's genes are slowly aging at a faster rate. If genetic optimization is not carried out quickly, her aging rate may be irreversible, and by then it will be too late. The process of operating the clone can also bring some proficiency to the real body as much as possible. In a few years, when Jia Yan is more prepared, he will genetically modify his wife and perfectly solve this crisis. A few days later. I'm leaving. If I have time next time, I will take you there to enjoy the beautiful scenery of the world there. Okay, you go ahead, I'm going back to prepare our biochemical country. The couple who had been together for a few days were about to separate again. Even though the Satsuma niche seems to be under the protection of Jia Yan, she is actually doing a lot of things. A woman who has her own dreams is actually quite beautiful. Goodbye. When the husband and wife parted, due to their personalities, neither party said any unpleasant words, but the tenderness when their eyes met was all unspoken. Dad, actually, you can help Mom. She is helping the biochemical empire to recover and rebuild, and she hasn't received much outside help. If she can get help from the outside, maybe everything will go smoothly, and she doesn't need it. So tired. Jiarong made suggestions beside him. Black God Jia Yan shook his head. Son, it seems that you haven't understood after so many years. Your mother doesn't lack external help, but lacks things to do. If I finish all these for her, do you want to take over? Will she enjoy herself when she comes down? Jiarong was stunned and understood something. Beside the train. The farewell team was a bit long today, with many people from the Jio family and the 5 major alliances coming. I'm sorry to trouble you, Your Excellency Jia Yan. Don't worry too much, we are partners, and I will naturally go all out for things that are mutually beneficial. Jia Yan waved his hand and spoke calmly to a senior domain master who was approaching him. The opponent's 5 major domain lords came out in full force, all preparing to follow Jia Yan to the other world. They are not afraid that Jia Yan will cause a car crash and kill people halfway, but they are confident about this. Because among them there is also a late domain master with subspace talent. This master seemed to have a draw in the battle with Jia Yan's clone, but his strength was still recognized by everyone. Moreover, regarding the matter of Jia Yan's avatar fighting a fellow of the same level that day, they had more conspiracy and analysis afterwards, and they all agreed that the black god Jia Yan used some kind of powerful weapon in his true form, and it was extremely consuming. Otherwise the effect of deterring a person of the same level will not be achieved. They got half of it right. Black god Jia Yan did use magic weapon level equipment from his true body, and it was extremely consuming. But if you say how precious this kind of thing is, saying it is precious is reasonable, but if you say it disappears after use, it makes less sense. If the fight continues that day, there is still a slight possibility that Black God Jia Yan will throw out 3 or 5 similar Deo hearts. Anyway, the 5 masters are not too afraid of what the Black God Jia Yan will do midway. Moreover, there is a real second-level master of the subspace domain. Jia Yan believes that if he really interferes, the opponent may really survive the tearing of the subspace, and in the end, the opponent may even find a way to deal with the distortion of this passage. Instead of doing this, it is better to take them to the other world honestly and slow down the time for this subspace genius to gain access to the passage alone. Boom. The train has grown a lot this time, after all, there are 5 more experts. Moreover, these 5 masters did not get much space, which was completely inconsistent with their status. Fortunately, these few didn't complain. Deep in the subspace, the 5 masters looked grim as they entered the deeper layers of the subspace. They discovered that they had underestimated Najayan's subdimensional abilities. How many levels of subspace are there already here? If you were in the outside world, would you be able to hold on? No. The expression of the late subspace talented domain master finally turned pale. He has no confidence at all. It seems that the real talent of Jia Yan is to support the subspace. It is different from the focus of my talent. Mine is to control the subspace. For example, I can control the entire subspace attack in a low-level subspace enemy, but here, I find that I can't even control the slightest bit of space. Several people showed horror and looked at each other. They were not death squads who were not afraid of death. Now that they knew that the people they relied on were not capable of protecting all of them, their faces suddenly didn't look so good. But this Jia Yan doesn't mean to attack us. Well, just wait for the good news. Everyone was also afraid that Jia Yan's clone was eavesdropping on their words, so they immediately fell silent. On the other hand, the master of subspace talent who had fought against the Black God's clone had his eyes lingering on the twisted depths of the outside world, his eyes flashing with thoughts from time to time. Obviously, he still has many opinions about subspace, and I am afraid it is not completely impossible to resist, but it is impossible for him to say this. Others may also think that he has the ability to fight against the external dimension. But if an accident does happen, is it credible to ask this person to fight tooth and nail to protect everyone? Black God Jia Yan pulled the train with some difficulty under the endless blue array defense brilliance. No matter how many times I do this kind of work, I still can't get used to it. I really need to ask mommy to pay me some wages next time, otherwise I will be exhausted. He was panting like a tired mangy dog. But he was not completely pulling the car, but was distractedly observing the 5 masters in the car. There is indeed equipment in the car, and I can eavesdrop on the conversation of these people. If you do this openly, the other party will have nothing to say. After all, it was on Jia Yan's own vehicle. Hey, these 5 people don't look like they are a piece of steel now. They are more likely to be temporary allies. It's good if they don't usually fight. Jia Yan knew very well that it was simply impossible for the lower-level masters of the 5 major domain lords to have the kind of brotherly relationship that Meng Bulijiao had. Things he has never encountered before, he thinks are impossible. Anyway, he didn't believe it, these 5 masters were really intertwined in life. What he overheard now almost verified his guess. We have only walked most of the way now, and the road ahead will probably even the subspace talent master be stunned and daunted. In this way, these 5 people will definitely be honest after entering the other world, because the only escape route was blocked by me, and the space master they had high hopes for couldn't find a way in or out in a short time. On this point, Jia Yan is confident. This channel of his was uniquely developed for himself. The entire passage was also built to accommodate his subspace talent. Letting a subspace master who could tell at a glance that he was taking a different path from Jia Yan's path to walk through would be to get twice the result with half the effort. The other world is Xiancheng. No one knew that the acting president of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, also known as the Assassin, who was leaving this time, actually returned with 5 peerless masters of the same level on his way back. Of course, it seems that these 5 peerless masters are nothing now if they are left in the inner world where the master is walking around. But overthrowing the entire dynasty shouldn't be a big problem. Woo! What's more, besides? Boom 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 boom. In the area where the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce resides outside Xiancheng, a huge station has been built that is as large as the trade area. Even to a certain extent, this station is more majestic and more atmospheric than the trade area. Because the means of production and labor force here are much better than those in the outside world. Building materials are picked up all over the ground, and a tree that is 10,000 kilometers long can be cut down casually, which is enough for most of the station's building materials. Is this the other world? It is indeed as amazing as the rumors say. The 5 masters got out of the car and looked at the world where they seemed to have become small in an instant. They were speechless for a long time, dumbfounded. After all, beings who come to the other world for the first time will feel this way. No one else laughed at him. 5 of you, please follow me. In this world, You may still have a lot of things you need to know, because this is not our outer galaxy, and there are also top experts. Thank you, Your Excellency Jiayan, please. The five of them deliberately suppressed their shock and surprise, and started walking with Jiayan in the station area. The further they walked, the more they sighed. The world here is too big. They heard that this so-called station was just a foot in the small mountain forest outside Xiancheng, but they had flown tens of thousands of kilometers in one go and had not yet seen the end of the station. The office they went to was a house about 10,000 kilometers high, designed for top experts to work. Such a majestic house, something that shocked the five experts, was still disliked by many local workers, saying that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is such a big organization. Why is it so economical on money, even 20,000 kilometers high? No houses were built. There is no way. It's not that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is stingy, but their structure. I didn't expect that even a house 10,000 kilometers high can be disliked by the locals. A house is the size of a planet in the Milky Way. It seems that we have indeed underestimated the world here. The sight of us today is enough to overturn our three views. The five masters felt surprised and happy as Jiayan advanced. They were surprised that the strangeness of the other world was far beyond their imagination beforehand, but they were happy to find out now that since the other world is so surprising, doesn't it mean that the possibility of possessing good treasures is greater? You all saw it on the way here, right? There are also native creatures working in the station, and most of the ones you see are intelligent life forms called small creatures. Don't look at them. They are far superior to us at every turn. Hundreds of kilometers high, but their size is called inhuman by normal residents of the other world. In other words, beings of this size are still just smaller life forms. From my own experience, the highest intelligent life I have ever seen in this world has reached a height of 10,000 or even more than 10,000 kilometers, and their strength cannot be underestimated. A life form 10,000 kilometers high. The five masters looked at each other. For a being of this size, not to mention his combat energy level, even if he stood there and let people chop him, just because of his huge size, he would need at least a star level to break through the defense. And with such a size, the strength is definitely not bad. Just to support the body mass, it requires energy of star level and above to be able to move simply. If it is strong, it must be as strong as a domain lord. In fact, this is exactly the case. Every master who has reached the 10,000 kilometer level is at least the domain lord level, and the slightly stronger ones are at the senior domain lord or even the master level. In this world, there are different terms to call the strong than those in the Milky Way, because they practice the Tao power system, and they describe masters with the profound levels of Tao power they comprehend, such as entering the Dao and Heavenly Dao, Guru's path, and so on. If there are those with my level of strength, they are called Guru level, and they correspond to the Guru's path. The five masters listened carefully to Jiayan's words. They know that any word at this time may help them face the crisis next. After arriving in the other world, the self-confidence of being a top expert disappeared in front of the huge flowers, trees, and even living creatures. Jiayan looked at these five domain masters who were listening carefully like primary school students and nodded secretly with satisfaction. He knew that at least until these guys fully understood the other world, he would temporarily have five top experts at his disposal. Of course, it is not something to be used casually. If you instruct them casually, they will definitely refuse, and the friendly relationship will be broken. Acting President. While Jiayan was chatting with the five masters about topics related to the other world, a master of the Chamber of Commerce domain lord level broke into the conference room. Huh? What's the matter? Jiayan's face looked a little ugly. After all, this was a meeting between him and the top five masters of the same level. He had given repeated instructions beforehand not to disturb him, and now his subordinates had barged in. Was it to make him look bad? Sorry, something major happened and I have to disturb you. The domain master quickly explained. Major events. Black God Jia Yan raised his eyebrows. He knew that these subordinates were relatively smart and would not bother them at this time unless something serious happened. Set a small goal first, such as remembering in 1 second, Shikiju. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3238. Tell me, these 5 are not outsiders. The domain master looked at the back steps of the 5 domain masters and glanced over. He felt that each one gave him a heavy feeling as if he was facing the rivers and lakes. He was suddenly frightened, knowing that the 5 masters were all better than him. Stronger strength. I just don't know whether it is the 5 senior domain lords, or someone who exceeds the senior domain lords. But he couldn't believe that he was the lower level of the 5 domain lords. After all, such powerful people were rare in the galaxy. It was impossible for anyone to suddenly enter the other world. But he guessed wrong. It's like this. Yesterday's unexpected incident caused the Imperial Rebel Army in the far north to attack the capital. The rebels in the far north moved. Why, Jia Yan was a little surprised, but it was far from the level of panic. The reason is unknown, and more than that, the army in the underground world that was originally confronting the Imperial Army also began to attack the Imperial Army yesterday. Now there is only a local exchange of fire, but the war is also showing signs of getting more intense. At this time, Jia Yan finally got up and asked, things all happened on the same day? Yes, it all happened yesterday, the text message came from our hyperspace communicator. And it's not just that. Black God Jia Yan finally couldn't sit still anymore, stood up suddenly and said, if there is any other important information, please explain it clearly in one breath, don't delay. Yes. The other party was slightly shocked, and quickly, not daring to delay any longer, he finished the matter in one go and revealed all the information. In the barbaric land of the far west, several tribes gathered their troops and advanced towards the dynasty. Even on several overseas islands, naval ships came to the dynasty area at this time. It seemed that in this day, the dynasty suddenly suffered when we are surrounded on all sides, countless armies are coming. Why? The subordinate said calmly, it is a masterpiece from those masters from alien galaxies. Jia Yan's body trembled slightly, and he finally knew the source of his worries. Those local creatures in the other world have always been under their control, and the other party does not take the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce seriously, which makes them easy to control. On the other hand, look at other life forms from the universe. They seem to be extremely inferior in the eyes of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, and have never encountered any decent existence. But what about the facts? The entire universe is so big. If they all have their own ways to enter the other world, how can there really be no real masters to enter it? Place of promotion. Black God Jia Yan's eyes flickered slightly, and he finally talked about this topic that he had always known about but didn't pay much attention to. The place of promotion, these 4 words alone represent everything. The masters of the Milky Way galaxy have this kind of rumor from ancient times to the present. Is there any outside world? Unless they are isolated from the other world, similar rumors are bound to exist. I want to meet with some powerful people from the universe, this afternoon. Yes. The subordinate nodded and left. The black god Jia Yan was sitting on his office sofa, silently replaying in front of his eyes a lot of information he had obtained in recent years about the extraterrestrial visitors from the outside world. They often appear in stories as bitter and hateful characters. They don't look very strong, and they don't seem to play an important role in history. But is this really the case? I've thought about it. If the things I thought were done by the masters of the Milky Way, or even the things the Supreme Seniors did, were not done by the masters of the galaxy, but were created by these powerful men in the universe, wouldn't it mean that, It's us who really don't have much visibility on this imperial island. As for the outer sea, I'm afraid there will only be more legends and historical events about the powerful people in the outer universe. I underestimated them and overestimated myself, but why did they come to the dynasty this time? What is the purpose of mobilizing so many forces to send troops? Is it related to my galaxy? Black God Jia Yan only felt a little pain in his head and couldn't help pinching his forehead. Senior, I have finished training. Suddenly a voice came from outside the house. It's not that the other party doesn't want to knock on the door and enter, but that she really can't get in. If this house were placed on Earth, it would be an unimaginably majestic palace, hundreds of kilometers high. But the little human woman outside the door is 300 kilometers above the ground, making it impossible to enter. Very good. You have done what I taught you. Now let me practice. Black God Jia Yan decided to observe Wu Pila's cultivation progress first. In fact, it is useless for him to be anxious now. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce cannot send troops to assist the dynasty. In a sense, the destruction of the dynasty was a good thing for them. Yes. Wu Pila practiced on the training field outside the house. What looked like Onmyoji erupted in an extremely explosive light on her body. Yes, your cultivation skills actually surpass Xuanghao. Jia Yan was slightly startled. After all, even he didn't expect Wu Pila's yin mutation skills to be even better than Xuanghao. Although Xuanghao was also the disciple he took in casually at the beginning, when it comes to true talent and learning, it should be Xuanghao. But Wu Pila showed even more exquisite yin and yang variant techniques. Next, you don't need to practice this dual energy technique. I have a formation here that is also related to your Tao power. You can take it and practice it. Yes. Wu Pila didn't know why Jia Yan asked her to practice so many new things, but she also really felt that her strength had improved. This kind of thing was undoubtedly good for him, so she would not look for reasons at all. As long as she becomes strong enough, she can protect the little humans in the future. As for Jia Yan's goals in front of her, she didn't care about them. Thinking about it, the other party is not a bad person. After all, if he wanted to kill her, he would have killed her long ago. The figure of Wu Pila leaving holding the fundamentals of formation skills given by Jia Yan made Jia Yan stare slightly. He vaguely grasped some of the context. But the context is quite moldy. Maybe this matter is related to what I am doing now, but I really can't think of any connection. Those cosmic masters have assembled so many armies to attack the imperial power. If they come to deal with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, it would be a bit too generous. But if it is not the case, it is difficult to explain why it would have been too late to take action, but it was only when Jia Yan and the others were ready to bear fruit on the side of the dynasty that they took action. Spies, give me some help. Why are there no news about the chess pieces, spies, and secret soldiers in several areas now? They can't all be killed, right? Black God Jia Yan's guess was indeed accurate. Pyridine. Sir, we have another spy from the galaxy Huawei. I didn't expect someone to hide it so deeply. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has tried its best to bury the chess pieces among our rebels. I'm afraid it has a big plan. No matter what his plans are, in the future, as long as he gets the world, this Chamber of Commerce will be at our disposal. That's true, but there are chess pieces secretly causing trouble, which always makes people uncomfortable. Check them out for me and kill them all. In a rebel barracks, several galaxy spies were picked out and killed. Several leaders of the rebels were chatting. The commander who had previously advised everyone not to make the matter a big deal had a look of urgency in his eyes. However, in the end he sighed quietly and shook his head helplessly. If you continue to stop it, even he will be exposed. Among this rebel army, he is the secret chess piece from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, and the person with the highest position is him. It's a pity that he can't do anything now. Even the chess pieces that helped him deliver information were found and executed. I hope the president and others can assess the situation and make preparations. These guys actually want to make a big move. Of course, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce was aware of it, and the information was put on Jia Yan's desk. But it doesn't matter if you know. Jia Yan specially ordered people to pass the information they obtained through ultra-high technology to the capital. As for whether the dynasty, which was still in the turbulent period of the new emperor and whose Chao Gang was controlled by the Queen Mother and powerful ministers and relatives, would care, then it's something that Jia Yan can't control anymore. There is some intelligence coming in, saying that there are new movements in the far north. What do you think? In the court hall, the Queen Mother glanced at the information casually, and then sent the information to several ministers. However, the humanoid princes below only glanced at them briefly, just like the Queen Mother, and looked at them with disdain. In the far north, the forces that killed the late emperor have grown stronger now. However, for decades, they have always made loud noises and made little rain. They have not made any moves every year, but they have never moved south. This year is probably no exception. Let's talk about it later. Let's talk about the Lin party. Yes, there is actually a party struggle going on in the imperial court today. A group of powerful ministers and relatives who had quickly come to power through the death of the late emperor in the war have now started a lot of party disputes and quarrels in the court because of the uneven distribution of interests. After all, they are all small groups formed through interests. At this time, there is no external pressure. After they speak out, they have no one else to deal with, and finally evolve into a complete form of internal fighting. You fight me and I fight you, it's a pleasure. The Lin Party matter is just a group of officials who claim to be members of the Lin Party. It would be better for the Queen Mother to listen to the humble minister and remove several high-ranking officials from the Lin Party, and the matter can be easily resolved. It's easy to depose people in the Lin Party, including middle and low-level officials, and depose their leaders. If they all start to cause trouble and write letters to provoke greater party strife, do you think things will evolve to a worse outcome? An old minister who was one of more than a dozen important ministers came out and said calmly. Everyone else's expressions were not very good. This old minister was the real instigator behind the scenes of the Lin Party. It was he who advocated the preservation of the original Lin Party lineage. After the death of the late emperor, this man became the secret leader of the Lin Party. Although he did not say it blatantly, but anyone with a discerning eye knows his identity. However, this person was unwilling to admit it and only wanted to speak out for the Lin Party in the court. That's wrong. The Lin Party's affairs may seem like trivial matters, but they are related to the dynasty's national structure. If they are allowed to grow, I'm afraid the dynasty will be even more ruined. It's better to do as I say. Release General Wu from prison, make him serve his crime, and also scare the members of the Lin Party who had enmity with him in the past. This kills two birds with one stone. No, General Wu is a staunch supporter of the emperor. If he were released and allowed to take over the military power, wouldn't it be? The matter could no longer be discussed at this point, and everyone who had been talking about it just now remained silent. It's like this every time. Everyone in the dynasty has its own constraints and worries. Even the Queen Mother, who listened behind the curtain, had nothing to do. Now she doesn't even give the current emperor a chance to show off, because decades have passed and the new emperor has grown up. If he sits on the throne by himself, he will probably say something in front of the ministers. What you don't want to hear. Instead of doing this, it would be better to imprison him in the Yangzin Hall. In name, the new emperor is unwell, but in reality, no one knows the specific reason. In other words, everyone actually knew it, but no one dared to say it openly. Well, this matter is not just for you to wait for. Let the ministers discuss it together at the court tomorrow morning. You can wait and retreat. According to the order. The ministers retreated, and the Queen Mother smiled slightly, captivating the country and the city. As if she thought of something happy, she walked behind the curtain, opened it, and pointed her fingers charmingly at a young giant with red lips and white teeth sitting inside. The other party understood and followed the Queen Mother into the palace. The curtain is lowered and everything is at ease. The fierce battle for thousands of kilometers is still going on, and at this moment, certain soft signals are transmitted like snowflakes into the homes of ministers, or through the entrances of public institutions, entering the doors of every major institution. On the agenda. Unfortunately, the imperial officials who went to work on the second day, especially the officials in the capital, opened these documents and information one by two, and they all immediately scoffed. What the hell, it's the far north and the far west, and there are ships coming from the sea. It's really a mess. The dynasty, which has been at peace for a long time, has long been free from any external pressure. Even the underground world, and even this major incident of rebelling against the emperor in the far north, only caused more people in the world talking about it. No one thinks that the dynasty will truly fall after this incident. The crisis of overthrowing the dynasty has happened countless times in history, but every time, it was supported by the founder and the bottomless foundation of the dynasty, which made it possible to survive. Now there is information coming in, saying that so many parties are preparing to use force against the dynasty. Is it possible? Impossible. What the hell is the so-called offshore fleet? Their dynasty has been in power for such a long time, and they have not had much communication with the outer seas. How could those so-called people from the outer seas directly send troops to fight against strange forces? The army of the imperial dynasty, no matter how powerful it was, never had the slightest thought of going to the outer seas to fight. This is nonsense. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3239. Boom. The shouts of killing shook the sky. It was as if there was a loud noise like the earth was shattering, and then there were strong ships and powerful cannons, heading towards the coast and land. Kill. Why are there overseas warships coming to kill us? Our dynasty has not experienced such a disaster in tens of thousands of years. Send the information quickly. When an army of warships sprang out like magic from the vast blue waters, the behemoths tens of millions of kilometers long could fit in countless regions, and even the sun could fit in a fleet of giant ships to reach the shore of the imperial dynasty. The port garrisons of countless coastal cities were shocked. The entire imperial navy was nothing more than a decoration, and because of the corruption of the imperial dynasty, the entire navy was extremely starved of money. The navy and even the coast guard had a huge number of missing personnel. So faced with this wave of raids by dozens of giant ships and hundreds of small ships, the defense of the entire southwest coast of the dynasty seemed to be in vain, being completely destroyed by a wave of enemy attacks. The sky collapsed. Countless people's jaws dropped. Amidst the panic, a large number of refugees emerged. Moreover, the land soldiers brought from the giant ships that occupied the coastal cities were all powerful generals and even gods of murder. They only wanted their lives and did not want to surrender. They killed 3 cities in a row until all rooms were empty and blood flowed into a river. The information finally got out. But it's over. When the imperial capital received urgent information, half a month had passed. During this half-month period, several similar waves of other island warships landed on the entire southwest coast, including the east coast of several wealthy places. All of them were poisoned by people from overseas. These rumors are actually true. There really is an offshore fleet coming to attack our dynasty, and the killing is so violent. Raise your troops quickly. Kill these offshore forces. Compared to those rebels, these offshore forces are the real man-eating beasts. The entire imperial capital fell into great shock and panic. Everyone couldn't understand why the dynasty, which had not seen any movement in the outer sea for tens of thousands of years, would come out to attack them when the dynasty was facing external and internal troubles. And because the imperial dynasty is also knowledgeable about the external forces, many of which are no weaker than the dynasty, so the sudden arrival of these forces is the most frightening thing in the court. No, we must not send troops to the southwest and east coast. Suddenly, a calm and peaceful voice above the court suddenly woke up the frightened people. Everyone looked away from the voice and saw that the speaker was an old humanoid being. He is already thousands of years old, and he is the only absolute veteran minister in the current dynasty who has served 4 emperors. He can be said to be loyal, and he has never made any major mistakes in the dynasty. Everyone seemed to have found a backbone and quickly asked, "I wonder if the old Prime Minister has any suggestions." Inform the Queen Mother. The old Prime Minister walked out tremblingly. He was originally more than 3,000 kilometers tall, but now he was hunched over as if he was less than 1,000 kilometers tall. "If you have anything to say, Mr. Prime Minister, just tell me." Even the Queen Mother had great respect for the old Prime Minister. Such a famous veteran who does not expect to be powerful is a treasure to the entire dynasty. "Your Majesty, the maritime war between the southwest and the east is by no means a threat to the destruction of the country and the species for our dynasty. I suggest that the issue of the maritime war on both sides can be left to a few eloquent officials. Just negotiate with the other party and delay." The Queen Mother frowned and asked with some confusion, "So, old minister, do you mean that we let the maritime war between these two parties go unchecked? They have fought inside the imperial dynasty. Although those cities are not worth mentioning, but it would be too disappointing for the whole dynasty. Besides, if the other party seizes the city and uses it as a base to encroach into the dynasty, it will probably be a big trouble." The old Prime Minister shook his head. "No, Queen Mother, according to what I have seen, you must first settle the internal affairs before going abroad. Those soldiers from the outer sea who came across the sea seemed to be strong, but in fact they were not. Their strength was only as strong as it is temporary. They do not have any background within our dynasty. Even if they want to devour the territory of our dynasty, they will never be able to do so easily. There are many talents in our dynasty, including many masters among the people, and even more. Many people are hostile to the dynasty, and if these outsiders come to seize our dynasty's territory, they will definitely be attacked like never before. On the other hand, looking at other military fronts within the dynasty, such as the northern bandits, the underground barbarians, or the barbaric tribes in the west, they are all real and serious dangers to our dynasty. Recently, there are signs of preparations in these places, and maybe they are already there. For the large-scale invasion of our dynasty, we should bear the brunt of the attack from these directions. Because they are the real threats that may overthrow the tens of thousands of years of our dynasty's achievements." As soon as the ministers heard this, they all talked about overthrowing the dynasty. They immediately did not dare to get involved in this topic, and kept their noses in mind. Because once you say the wrong thing, you may be in danger of confiscating your family and exterminating your family. But the old Prime Minister is different. He is really an old hero. Even if he is criticized in order not to fall into the world, the Queen Mother cannot punish him for this. "Old Prime Minister, what you said makes sense. However, the 10 generations of emperors have said that people overseas are all ferocious beasts. If our dynasty is powerful, we can conquer them all in 4 battles. Now that the dynasty is weak, it will not only be unable to conquer the shores of the outer sea. If we still allow them to invade the imperial territory, won't we make the late emperor suffer even greater humiliation?" The Queen Mother said calmly. The old Prime Minister was a little angry and tapped the crutch in his hand. "Queen Mother, I don't understand the words of the late emperor in this way. 10 generations ago, our dynasty had strong soldiers and horses. Although our founder is now in charge, the national strength of the dynasty has long been due to Gang, and we have suffered huge losses due to natural disasters. According to the dynasty's advice, we should first smooth out domestic affairs, otherwise the dynasty will be in danger if we use troops abroad. The Queen Mother calmly looked at the ministers around her. Although this old Prime Minister is very old, his reputation is still quite terrifying within the entire imperial bureaucracy today. Now that the old Prime Minister has spoken, no one among them dares to stand up and refute. The Queen Mother thought about it carefully and felt that what the old minister said made sense. That's it. Let's leave the specific matters to the old Prime Minister. I hope it won't ruin this year's taxation. When the Queen Mother said these words, she was issuing a task and also faintly revealing a message: if something goes wrong, the blame will fall on the elders. Old Minister, I will do my best. The old Prime Minister nodded tremblingly, tapped the cane on the ground, and flew up into the sky. He left a sentence: I will go to handle the affairs now. My colleagues, please help the Queen Mother with her government affairs. The ministers looked at each other. Is this old Prime Minister really old? He is so arrogant. He is no longer like the old man who just stood in the lobby without saying a word. The old Prime Minister is also worried about national affairs. I didn't expect that at such an age, I would still have to be responsible for the national affairs. I really deserve death. Okay, let's talk about tax issues next. These ministers never expected that after leaving home, the old Prime Minister would go straight to the Ministry of War and ask for the highest military power he could get. Then when the ministers were discussing how to deal with this year's tax revenue, he had already cooked the rice, and quickly completed the recruiting and political affairs, that is, the government affairs for the nationwide military recruitment. By the time other bureaucrats, satisfied with their benefits, walked out of the court, it was already too late. No one can say whether the old Prime Minister's electric spark is right or wrong, but many people are watching. After all, within the dynasty, there was unlimited confidence in the use of troops. With the founder here, even if the enemy forces attack the area of the imperial capital, it will be a matter of peace of mind for everyone. The strength of the founder is the officials' last trump card and the source of their confidence. No one wants new recruits, which represents their interests, which will be greatly reduced. But after the old Prime Minister got the consent of all the bureaucrats, especially the Empress Dowager's personal decree, he felt that he had great righteousness. As a result, everyone had nothing to say, and they just accepted it like a dumb man eating coptis. But they are also ready. If the old Prime Minister makes any mistakes in this matter, I am afraid that the snowflakes of remonstrances will make him unsafe until the end of the year. Snapped. However, at a time when everyone in the dynasty was puzzled by the affairs handled by the old Prime Minister, and even complained about it, they were far away in Xiancheng, which was unknown how far away. Black God Jia Yan slammed the information onto the table and couldn't help but admire it. In the Niu dynasty, there are indeed people with real talents and practical skills. I saw this old Prime Minister in the court hall last time. He was standing next to him and kept silent. I thought he really didn't understand anything. Old man, I didn't expect that at the critical moment, he would stand up and turn the tide. He sighed slightly. This dynasty is in danger, and such a person appears. I don't know if he is the last mantis to act as a chariot, or is it just a flash in the pan. The old Prime Minister's actions and abilities were beyond Jia Yan's expectations. Because the other party does not have the blessing of scientific and technological communication capabilities, it is impossible to look at the problem by integrating intelligence from various places like Jia Yan. And relying only on experience and analysis, we can conclude that the dynasty is now in danger and needs the strongest degree of military mobilization. This ability is probably only possible by the most powerful government affairs and taboo masters. At this time, the dynasty is urgently mobilizing. If government affairs are unimpeded, I am afraid it will still be able to struggle for a while, and there is a possibility of turning defeat into victory in the future. But the question is whether this old prime minister has enough prestige and ability to keep government affairs flowing smoothly. From what I can see, the dynasty's ability to do business, unless he has 3 heads and 6 arms, he really can't do it. Jia Yan has been in this world for decades and has already seen clearly the corruption and incompetence of the dynasty. Rotten to the core. It's basically the level where the mud can't hold up the wall. If he can be saved by the old man, it means that his ability must be far underestimated. But it would be good for the dynasty to resist for a while longer. Black God Jia Yan couldn't help but have hope again. If the dynasty collapses directly, it will be absolutely bad news for the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Not only are they current, their strength is not enough to control the entire world, even their prestige is far from enough. Even if he adds the masters of the lower ranks of the 5 major domain lords to temporarily work for him, what will happen even if the dynasty is defeated? The people will not be convinced by the power created by aliens. It's impossible to kill all the life forms inside and outside the entire dynasty. Not to mention whether it can be done, but even if it can be done, how will other overseas people view them? How do those forces in the mainland view them? Therefore, Jia Yan hopes that the dynasty can provide more support. If they last longer, I might be able to understand the purpose of the outer universe forces behind these forces that are stirring up trouble. Jia Yan's eyes became dark. He focused on other information. In fact, after learning that the masters from the outer universe were involved in mobilizing all forces to attack the dynasty, he did his best to conduct a large number of investigations and interrogations. The subjects of the first interrogation and consultation were several galaxy-level masters from around Xiancheng who had come to ask Jia Yan to take them in before. This group of experts is having a miserable time. Because of their different appearance, their strength is not unique in the other world. They have become street rats that everyone yells at. Even small creatures do not accept them. So, after learning that Jia Yan started a business in the name of the Chamber of Commerce, after gaining control of the power of the aliens, they came to worship the mountain and wanted to join. It's a pity that Jia Yan excluded them because they were not strong enough. Now that they were summoned for the second time, they came running over one by one. However, they were disappointed when they learned that this time they just wanted to ask them for some information. Jia Yan's questions were very strange. He asked about how they came to the other world, and about their contact process with other extraterrestrial visitors from the other world. I asked questions here and there, but there seemed to be no theme. They had some expectations at first, but gradually cooled down because they observed that Jia Yan seemed to have no intention of accepting them. Don't worry, tell me what you know, and I will consider accepting you into the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Today's Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is no longer the Wuxia Aman of decades ago. Crossing the island, when doing business on the mainland, there will naturally be countless local residents as subordinates, and there may even be extraterrestrial visitors mixed in as staff. These few more are nothing. These stellar masters changed their expressions like chameleons and began to talk endlessly. That's it? Thank you. Please come back and wait for our recruitment notice. Yes, thank you, Senior President. The masters left happily, but Jia Yan became a little solemn. He continued to recruit a large number of masters from outside the world who were seeking help from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, and asked them to give their information. After some twists and turns, Jia Yan became more and more certain of one thing. There is a conspiracy behind all this. Even if Jia Yan himself came to such a conclusion, his heart was filled with consternation and some indescribable fear. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3240. After several days of intensive consultation and understanding, Black God Jia Yan finally concluded this intelligence investigation. As expected, behind these forces are indeed these outer universe beings, and other visitors from the outer universe under their power have not revealed too much inside information. Many people even believe that they entered the inner world because of the incident. But after searching for clues, I think they shouldn't have entered by mistake, but have another reason. Then the question comes: did I enter the incident by mistake, or was it because there was an invisible hand behind my back that made me come to the other world? Even during the subsequent journey into the inner world with Chuxing Jikiao and the two of them, is there some super big shot behind the scenes pushing us to enter? The silence lingers. He already had a certain answer deep in his heart, but he couldn't face this answer. If even his two entrances were controlled by some kind of power, his so-called supermaster was a bit too manipulated. He can accept that someone is stronger than him, and even accepts that the other person can control his life and death. But he couldn't accept that he had entered the other party's trap, and now he even knew the other party's purpose. Good intentions, bad intentions. The Black God Jia Yan turned off the lights. The inner world in the dark night was dotted with stars. He looked up at the large number of unknown luminous objects in the sky and remained silent for a long time. There were very few times in his entire life when he was in such trouble. Not to mention the difference between the real body and the clones. Although Jia Yan now has the real body and dozens or even hundreds of clone consciousnesses, in short, there is still only one main consciousness. That is the original Jia Yan. In the end, various personalities such as silence, optimism, cheerfulness, irritability, etc. all come from the ontology. It is also him, the basic thoughts and consciousness, reborn into the original body without any accidents. Therefore, when Black God Jia Yan thinks, he uses the consciousness of the main body Jia Yan. When he meets the real body and the consciousnesses merge instantly, this part of the consciousness will be integrated into the real body, just like the real body has also experienced this. It's like thinking. That is just a certain thought of his body. For more than 100 years, I have been ups and downs, but I don't want to admit that my own choices and strategies were definitely not forced on me by a powerful person. Therefore, this world is a dream. Okay, regardless of whether there is any will to push it, but as far as the whole incident is concerned, it is still my own choice. Once the tone is set, the whole thing becomes easier to resolve. He believed that through the investigation in the past few days, he had learned that all the visitors from outside the world scattered all over the Imperial Island actually had their own invisible hands driving them here. As for Jia Yan himself, it was probably driven by similar big hands. There is no need for bitterness or deep hatred. If nothing else, he believed that this invisible hand was one or even several masters at the top of the galaxy. That is to say, an existence belonging to the level of the Supreme Being, and may even be the Supreme Being himself. There is no need to be so hostile when facing an existence that far exceeds your own strength level, because you are not even a slight threat to them. They don't care whether you hate them or not. Instead of wasting your feelings and energy, it is better to put more effort into it. More emotions are focused on how to deal with the problem at hand. Let me formulate a hypothesis. After he thought about it for a long time, he started to have strange thoughts again. If we say that behind every galaxy in the universe, or behind every powerful alien force, there are extremely powerful beings at the level of the Supreme Being. Each of them is a terrifying being in charge of the galaxy, and they let their subordinate galaxy powerhouses enter the other world, and they are destined to have their own goals. And those of us who are higher level masters may have a higher status than ordinary intruders, because there are not many powerful people who belong to the lower level domain lords, even under the hands of that kind of existence. Then if they have any demands against us, will they show up at a certain point and tell me the truth? Jia Yan guessed. If it was malicious, he would have taken action to deal with it long ago. He believed that there was an existence that really had the ability to play this kind of chess game. If he wanted to destroy himself, it would be easy. Even if he escaped back to the galaxy, he would be followed and killed by his clones. Masters at the level of Tai Hang, even if they are not at the level of the masters who created the 4 giant stars, are definitely not far behind. I have personally experienced that they envelope the black hole area, and even colonize the cultivation of all cultivators in the entire Milky Way central star field. After using deep methods, no matter how confident Jia Yan was, he never believed that he could escape from the hands of such a godlike master. But if these masters all control the world, some important resources, or some key points, then they will definitely have to differentiate themselves. Is there a possibility that I am a member? Are the supreme masters in our galaxy specially sent to other worlds to decide the division of territory for them? Top masters generally do not take action easily. If the territory is divided, they may use geniuses or powerful generals from certain subordinate forces to determine the ownership of the territory. At the beginning, Jia Yan encountered many rules in places such as the Genius Battlefield and the Central Star Territory that treated geniuses as top-notch treatment and focused on training. If things extend all the way to the other side of the world, it is very likely that the entire galaxy is justified in thinking so highly of top talents. It is for the benefit of the top experts. Jia Yan's entry may really be some invisible giant hand, adding fuel to the fire. Call. Black God Jia Yan let out a long breath, as if he had figured out some joints. But whether it is or not depends on what happens next. For him, there are clues to many things, especially some things that were originally incomprehensible. Now after this series of collusion, they can be colluded to make sense. A feeling of sudden enlightenment. So even if it doesn't hit, it's not far off. I just don't know if the real body has also discovered some information. If anything is found, come back and add it up with me, and it will be almost certain. The clone of the Black God is looking forward to the return of the real body far away on the mainland as soon as possible. Even if there are no clues about the real body, the clues here can be combined with them, and a rough conclusion can be drawn. However, is there really no clue about the real person, even in the coastal mountains and forests of the mainland? In fact, this is impossible. After all, the imperial areas belonging to the islands contain a large number of clues, and going deep into the hinterland of the prosperous mainland, it is impossible for Jia Yan not to see something. Is it some kind of battle debris component from the outer universe again? On the way forward with the caravan, Jia Yan had collected a lot of battle fragments from the outer domain, which made him slowly become more solemn. Some of these combat parts have good uses and contain a lot of energy, but most of them are metal objects that have lost energy or have no energy at all. The value can be high or low, and the residents of the other world are not stupid. The approximate price is set based on the value of the components, but Jia Yan will definitely buy it no matter how high or low the price is, as long as he comes across it. This became more and more attractive to him. It is estimated that some beings from the universe have invaded the mainland area before, but what kind of existence can invade this extremely huge area of the mainland? Furthermore, the design styles of these components and weapons are different, and the energy use seems to be very different, which means they do not belong to the same galaxy at all. They may even be extremely far apart in the universe, but they all seem to be at the same point in time. I entered the other world, had a fierce battle with something, and finally, left these weapons and other equipment behind. As for the physical body, nothing was found. At least in Jia Yan's current acquisition journey, no physical remains of Outlanders have been purchased. Ask the local people in the other world, and they will be vague. No one understands these disputes that have been so long ago that many ordinary forces have lost their ability to investigate. Mr. President, there is another town ahead. Our Chamber of Commerce personnel have already gone to arrange it and built a small Chamber of Commerce branch. It is. Would you like to go and have a rest? Go ahead. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's behavior in the mainland area is also becoming more and more large-scale. After all, everyone has something to offer, especially the members of the trade zone who have entered the other world. Each has its own special skills. Some people who are strong in administration have developed the idea of building branches wherever the Chamber of Commerce goes, which is the policy of action. Some top products have even spread throughout the coastal areas with administrative staff. As long as they enter a certain village or city, they can quickly set up a production line and hire local people for production without any support from the headquarters. Establishing a rudimentary product line by oneself, and then opening up the market with these rudimentary products, eventually opening up business routes and transporting more important and precious resources from the headquarters, thus allowing the Chamber of Commerce to expand rapidly. Using this method, the entire Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has now taken root in the mainland, with tens of thousands of branches spread out in just 10 years. Every hour of every day, they bring back immeasurable amounts of money to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. At this time, we passed by the location of another branch. Jia Yan remembered that after he decided to go to the forest for this branch, he sent a team of 1,000 people to explore the points first, and then those with the ability to build branches in the cities along the way. If there are problems or dangers during the construction process, their president will take over the matter personally, and with Jia Yan's strength and endorsement, almost all of these problems will be solved. About 300 branches have been hastily established behind the scenes, and they have all been warmly welcomed by local cities. Those who are not welcome have been buried in the ground forever. He couldn't tell whether it was colonization to some extent, but Jia Yan enjoyed it and insisted that it was just doing business. The problems that the branch in front is encountering now include, first, the local gentry are resolutely resisting. Second, a force stationed in the area called the Stick Gang has attacked several times, and even the branch minister was assassinated. Third, the local city government was unwilling to cooperate. After Jia Yan listened, he nodded. The giant mosquito's body flexed greatly, and then his eyes suddenly condensed. Deep in the forest, a figure flashed past as fast as lightning. His eyes became extremely solemn. These are guys from the outer universe. Since he rejected other masters from the outer universe in the mainland a few months ago, he has been constantly being followed by inexplicable strong men from the outer universe. Moreover, there were countless of these guys. After killing a few of them, the strength of the newcomers even improved by leaps and bounds. One of them, Jia Yan, personally captured him and even escaped using his unique escape skills. Those who were caught looked like they would rather die than obey, and no one said anything. This made Jia Yan feel vaguely uneasy. You must know that the uneasiness felt by the domain masters at the lower level usually has a real reaction to a considerable extent. In other words, these sources of uneasiness can really threaten Jia Yan's existence. I just don't know if these threats are from some masters or from other things. There's always been some sense of inconsistency in this world. Everything here seems reasonable, but there are a lot of unreasonable things. Jia Yan no longer went to arrest the insider who escaped, because he knew that the person he failed to arrest last time was the one. The opponent's specific strength, even if he has not reached the lower level of Territory Lord, is not far behind. The higher probability is that he is a lower level Territory Lord. But such a being comes to follow him. No matter what, it makes him think deeply. Fear. You can't catch him, and even if you are caught, you won't be able to ask anything. Instead, it will trigger an escalation of conflict between the other party and even the large-scale background that may exist behind the other party. Jia Yan would not choose to expand the conflict before knowing the reason for the other party's action. Of course, the premise is that the other party who is just a follower. If he wants to do something again, then forgive him for not abiding by this iron rule. In the inner world, there are indeed hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Even the masters of power in the outer lands who came to follow me have such strength. They really underestimated the people of the world. But why do these so-called outsiders keep appearing next to me, asking for help, and trying to get into the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce? However, I investigated carefully and found no specific reason for them to do so. Is it possible that each of these people's reasons for coming to me are legitimate, but so many people come here, and each has their own reason? In fact, there is an invisible hand that makes did they do this involuntarily. Jia Yan's mind is quite smart, at least he is very good in terms of being bold and careful. It can even be said that he is as careful as his hair. Baiyu reminds you, remember to bookmark WW after reading it. I will update it next time so that you can continue reading. I look forward to continuing the exciting. You can also use the mobile version, you can read it anytime and anywhere. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3241. Puff. Senior, please spare your life. I am willing to support the establishment of your Chamber of Commerce. Very good. This president likes people who know their faces. If you cooperate well, I will not treat you badly. Throwing down the anxious and seriously injured person, Jia Yan shot again and disappeared into the carriage box. Behind them was a secondary master-level master who had reached the level of a senior domain lord, watching their departure with eyes that dared not speak with anger. Under the smooth and formulaic operation, the entire process has been simplified. Jia Yan's attacks are usually of a punishing nature. After showing the top combat power of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, it is candy those extremely high-end and exquisite food and other products that will be put into production. While the opponent is still in the stage of fear, he will unleash kindness towards them. Generally speaking, those who are smart enough will choose to accept the goodwill of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce and become collaborators under their interest chain. As for those who are stubborn, other experts will come to take over the matter. The purpose of Jia Yan's personal attack was to intimidate, not to say that there were no other experts in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. In fact, the current Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has more and more local trading companies and other forces that have become part of its interest chain. If they really want to start a war, they can form an army that is several times or even dozens of times stronger than the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Of mercenary troops. Therefore, the security force behind him is completely strong enough. If things go well, even the masters here who have been personally taught by Jia Yan will be deeply tied up and become part of this tank. This is the effect of economic warfare combined with technological crushing. Lord Jia Yan, not too far ahead, we reach the edge of powerful forces that are relatively unfriendly to our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. The attitude in that area is generally unfriendly to outsiders. At the same time, I was invited last time to come. This is where the masters from outer space who deal with the local forces currently live. Well, I understand. Jia Yan Hui personally spent several months rushing to the hinterland of this mountain forest because he had previously received gifts from masters from the outer universe. It happened that he also wanted to resolve the confusion in his heart, so he hit it off immediately and came here in person. Who? In front of the caravan was a group of heavily armed forest warriors. Some of them have the appearance of humans, while others are orangutans, tigers, eight-headed monsters in the mountain forest, etc., and each of them looks like a brave and capable warrior. These adults, we are a caravan from the coast beyond the mountains and forests. This trip is to sell some excellent products to your area. This time, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce was still passing through the ordinary caravans. After hearing this, the leaders of the caravans quickly came out and explained something to the forest soldiers who were blocking the road. Those dressed as soldiers began to inspect the goods that had passed customs carefully, and at the same time they calmly accepted the benefits offered by the caravan boss. When passing by the queue of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, they were a little curious about this team composed of small creatures. However, a domain lord level expert from the Galaxy Caravan Corps nodded and bowed, handed over the money and goods, and left with satisfaction. After a while, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce was released. The purple water sect in the green forest is the force that hunted us before. Later, as we passed the border and killed the generals, when they approached the purple water sect area, they restrained themselves. I don't know if they gave up or concentrated. Strength, prepare to deal with me and others. Jia Yan sat quietly in the carriage. An aura that only belonged to the masters of Taoism in the other world circulated around him. That kind of Tao power is not the pure Tao realm of the local world, nor is it the artistic conception mastered by the masters of the outside galaxy and universe, but something that is a combination of the two. If Chu Xing and the others come to see it, they will definitely be surprised. Because the power Jia Yan is exuding now is exactly the same as the feeling they had when they deliberately let Jia Yan get lost in Tao power. Just a few decades later, all of this has changed. The Taoist power that Jia Yan has mastered will no longer let him get lost, but will become part of his own strength. Call. Only after you enter the Tao realm through true cultivation can you feel the magic and benefits of this kind of Tao power cultivation. Your whole state of mind becomes much more comfortable and smooth. The giant mosquito's compound eyes flashed with light. He became more composed. If we say that in the past 100 years or so, he was just a master who gained strength and had amazing talent. He was always full of the momentum of a young boy, with plenty of strength but insufficient experience. Now, his strength has been further consolidated, and his character has become very different from usual. Why, somehow, I can feel that this so-called Taoist cultivation technique and the power of the universe complement each other. Jia Yan couldn't help but fell silent again. Even though he didn't get the information from the clone, Jia Yan still felt an unusual sense of violation through his own knowledge and experience. Is everything in the inner world really not even remotely related to the outside universe? To this day, he has put a big question mark on this point of view. With so many relics, as well as many events and things that are inextricably related to the outside world displayed in front of him, Jia Yan no longer thinks that the inner world is really a place independent of the outside world. Even because there are many masters of the outer universe here, compared to the current situation in our galaxy where it is extremely difficult to access the existence of the outer universe, maybe the inner world is some kind of bridge that is more convenient for us to contact the outside world. Jia Yan pondered for a while. Then he raised his head and looked at the more winding paths outside. This kind of trail is only over 1,000 kilometers wide and is simply too rough for giant life forms. But for a small creature like Jia Yan, it is basically a broad road. The purple water sect is about 500 million kilometers ahead. We have now entered the hinterland of the purple water section. If they have any hostility towards us, they should take action against us in the near future. An expert from the Chamber of Commerce spoke up next to Jia Yan. Jia Yan's carriage is very large, and there are even many small spaces separated in the entire carriage, making it easier for the masters to pass orders and issue orders together. Well, the purple water sect may have some misunderstandings about us. If there is a conflict, remember not to take too much action. Yes. This subordinate of the Chamber of Commerce took the order and retreated. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is already very powerful. It's not just as simple as being powerful on the surface. Because from the surface, the strength of this caravan is just that, ordinary. The domain lord level is less than a slap in the face, and there is no senior domain lord. For ordinary caravans, it is top-notch, but when it comes to the many forces that threaten passing by, it is just nonsense. But the superficial power numbers are just the surface. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has mastered the technology of short-term violent attacks, and also has various methods from the galaxy to instantly enhance combat effectiveness. In addition to the Yin-Yang Dao explosives, Yin-Yang Dao artillery, Yin-Yang Dao formation and other technologies that Jia Yan personally researched, Masters such as Chu Xing Jiao from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce also contributed a lot of their power. The powerful combat skills in the other world are improved for the other world, because it is extremely difficult to obtain special resources in the other world. These technologies are brought to the other world, and their power is even strengthened, becoming an unlimited edition. Those are the real reasons why the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has traveled all the way here with almost no loss in combat power and is invincible. There is no point in contending with the behemoth Purple Water sect. Creak, creak, creak. The wooden carriage made pleasant noises from time to time. The refreshing woody aroma is also extremely abundant. Jia Yan smelled these aromas and entered a state of emptiness again. But this state of emptiness did not last long, and he regained his clarity. The people from the Purple Water sect are here, be prepared. As commanded. Following Jia Yan's orders, all the soldiers below were mobilized. Even though the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is just a member of the ordinary caravan here, their actual number far exceeds the entire caravan as a whole. A large number of ordinary members are hidden in each carriage, and those who have passed the power level do not take these tiny creatures living in carriages seriously at all. After all, many caravans also do such things, transporting certain small creatures and charging a certain fare, although these small creatures can give, they don't have much money, but they add up to it. Over the years, they even form some small tribes of creatures that live in caravans and roam throughout the continent. There is no discrimination against small creatures, but in mainland China, small creatures are not given too high a status. Generally speaking, they are just ignored. Now, these members of the Galaxy Caravan, who were regarded as small creatures, were ordered to quickly mobilize. A few minutes after Jia Yan's voice fell, a group of people in unique costumes were suddenly waiting on the road in front of the caravan. President of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, please get out of the car if the sect leader of the sect invites you. A young man who looked like a handsome young man looked at the caravan here. Everyone from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, the people from the Purple Water sect are here to find you. It's not easy for us to get involved. I'm sorry. The leader of the caravan who led the caravan looked at the people coming from the Purple Water sect who were carrying weapons. It was obvious that the people coming were evil, and he suddenly showed fear. This is normal. Caravans are usually a mixture of caravan forces that they have good relationships with. If they encounter trouble, they are still willing to help if there is a chance. However, when encountering coercion and inducement from large forces, it is impossible to stand up for others. Of those who dared to stand up have long since died in a foreign land. The remaining caravans are all experienced people who cannot be enthusiastic in this situation. We understand, don't worry, the matter will be resolved by ourselves. Thanks to his leader for taking care of us along the way. No, it's our caravan alliance that wants to thank you. I didn't expect that you are so powerful and have solved many problems on the road. Without you, we might have suffered huge casualties. The leader of the caravan was relatively loyal. Before leaving, he walked to the waiting people of the Purple Water sect and wanted to intercede. However, he was kicked by one of them and flew away to the roadside. Suffering slight injuries, he immediately sighed and left helplessly. It's up to his leader to interact with him. From now on, let him be responsible for certain parts of the trade route. Yes. Jia Yan's instructions in the carriage were carefully recorded by his subordinates. Many ordinary staff of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce are also very satisfied with Jia Yan's order. I have met a lot of good and bad people along the way. Generally speaking, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce will give certain preferential treatment and benefits to such friendly people if they can. Your Excellency Jia Yan, President of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, don't we need to go there to invite him in person? On the Purple Water sect side, the leading young man continued to sneer. The power emanating from his body has actually reached the guru level. Although in Jia Yan's view, This power seems to be just barely reaching the guru level, and it still feels a little shaky, but the guru is a guru, and he is at the same level as Jia Yan. Since your sect invites you, how can you not give me a face-saving gift? With the appearance of this male voice, the giant mosquito flashed in front of the group of Purple Water sect members. Such a move shocked the opponent's crowd into a strange color. After all, the movement speed used by Jia Yan was beyond the reach of most of the people present. Only the young man who had reached the level of a master still had the same expression. Your Excellency, President, you are very skillful. Please do it. He even looked eager to give it a try, but at least he endured it. Jia Yan almost read the 4 characters proud of life on this person's face. According to the age of people in this world, he is about 200 or 300 years old. At this age, he can reach the master level, which is almost the same as the lower level of outside domain lords. In any case, he is an amazing genius, only better than Jia Yan, a little weaker, but he is the most talented person Jia Yan has ever seen so far. No wonder he is so proud. But Jia Yan didn't know the other party either. If you really want to start a fight, it is easy to kill the young team in front of you, but the Purple Water sect behind is a behemoth that makes Jia Yan a little afraid. If the war is not handled well, it will also have some kind of impact on the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Degree of threat. When Jia Yan started flying, he was flying at the same level as the young man. However, the opponent was 3,000 to 4,000 kilometers high. He was not a giant race, but he was definitely not an ordinary civilian race. I wonder why the sect, with such a huge sect, is interested in this merchant. Seeing Jia Yan asking questions, the young man turned to look at him. However, after sensing the unfathomable sense of power in Jia Yan, and that even he himself could not see through it at a glance, his eyes suddenly shrank. Slightly he responded politely, "President, you don't need to ask too many questions. When you go to the place of our sect, the master will tell you." "Oh, teacher. Can you tell me more about me? Who is this teacher?" The young man realized that Jia Yan was trying to get information from him, and he immediately smiled and said, "Don't worry, as the Zishui sect is one of the most powerful forces in this mountain forest, and is as famous as the major sects along the coast, I will not attack you without any reason. You just need to follow me, and you will know which teacher wants to see you when you get there." Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3242. Jia Yan knew that nothing could be asked at this time. He didn't say much about the other party's condescending attitude. The Purple Water sect is a behemoth that received information before entering this mountain forest. It is on par with several top sects in the coastal areas outside. It is suspected that there are supermaster level experts in the sect. Jia Yan is not very afraid, because he has realized that the strength of a supermaster is nothing more than a strong person who has gone further on the road to heaven, rather than an existence that has reached the top of the galaxy. The only doubt is why the other party started to bite them from the middle of the journey, and even sent many waves of so-called assassinations. Looking at the overall situation, these assassinations and interceptions are nothing more than small fights, not even tests. Bribing soldiers, bandits, and bureaucrats from passing forces to suppress and harass them. Isn't this kind of thing an assassination? As long as they know the general strength of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, it is impossible for anyone to believe that they can truly succeed in assassinating Jia Yan. It is nothing more than disgusting Jia Yan. The Zishui sect is built on the top of Ming's mountain, a towering and strong seat. Even the mountain in this world can be called a big mountain. It is naturally as big as a human body. Its height reaches the sky, reaching a height of 30 million kilometers. It takes some effort to climb this mountain. Ordinary residents of this world, even those with a certain level of strength, would find it difficult to climb to the top of the mountain. The clouds and smoke and birds on the mountain peaks are a calming scene. The Kyangluyu in the clouds and mist is even more like a world in a fairyland. From time to time, there are some illusory and real fairy beasts wandering in the clouds and mist. Outside the Purple Water sect, bustling sect members gathered from all directions, some climbed up the stairs, and some fell from the sky, but no matter who came to the sect, they would alight in front of the gate and pack their bags respectfully outside the door. And then enter the giant gate at an altitude of 300,000 kilometers. Compared to the coastal sects that Jia Yan had seen before, this Zishui sect was considered to be a powerful force far beyond ordinary. I've met senior brother. I've met senior brother. When the young man led Jia Yan to the gate, the momentum of people coming and going suddenly stopped, and then everyone saluted with reverence to the young man who had reached the level of a guru. Jia Yan realized clearly, sure enough, even in a super sect in the mainland, a person who reaches the master level at a young age is also a transcendent disciple. The young man was intrigued and turned back to look at Jia Yan, knowing that this outlander invited by his master also understood his status and identity in the Zishui sect, and felt that his face was enough. He was only recently officially promoted to the master level, and because he is only 350 years old, he is regarded as the most talented person in the entire Purple Water section in terms of age. He is close to the most talented person in the history of the Purple Water section. There was only about 10 years left for promotion. It can be said that he is a rising star that attracts much attention in the entire Zishui sect. Leading Jia Yan through the gate at an altitude of 300,000 kilometers, there is a cave inside, and ancient buildings with withered beams and painted pillars are coming towards you. There is no jewelry, but there is an indescribable brilliance. This senior brother did not lead Jia Yan to the main hall, but bypassed the ancient palace in the center and entered a separate hall about 5 million kilometers behind. Entering it, an elderly man wearing a Taoist uniform similar to the other world was sitting cross-legged facing the temple door, muttering something. I've met Master. When the young man woke up the old man, Jia Yan felt some kind of invisible pressure coming in the hall, and some kind of indescribable majesty permeated the hall. This is the president of the Outland Chamber of Commerce that you want to meet, Jia Yan. Jia Yan was not overwhelmed by the direct momentum, but nodded with a slight smile. Jia Yan, the president of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, has met this friend. What kind of person is my master? Do you dare to call him your friend? The young man looked angry and narrowed his eyes. It doesn't matter, this one is probably not much worse than my master, the old man said, his voice hoarse. The young senior brother finally looked a little shocked. He looked back at Jia Yan, who was called not much worse by his master, and seemed to be still confused. You know, life in this world is very, very high, even so high that Jia Yan has never seen before. Adult giants must be at the galaxy level. On the mainland, the strongest race of experts is destined to reach the middle level of the galaxy when they reach adulthood, and even sick beetles will definitely be able to reach it. Ordinary races are not so amazing. For example, the humanoid race that the young man belongs to is also the main race in this mountain forest. The race is collectively called the Forest People and is naturally capable of reaching a high-level star. With a little practice, it's easy to break into the galaxy level, but entering the Territory Lord level requires a certain amount of talent. A young talent like him who has reached the later level of Territory Lord, that is, the Master level, at such a young age can be said to be one among billions, a genius among geniuses. But that's all. His master, although not as talented as him when he was young, was just a hair away. He broke into the guru level at the age of over 390 years old and shocked the Purple Water sect. But now, this talented old man, who is over 70 years old, has already shown signs of death, and will die soon, is also extremely far away from the super master. And the guild master of the outer territory whom he brought next to him felt that the life breath in his body was extremely surging. He must be very young, but he was actually close to his master? Could it be that there are more geniuses in foreign lands than in their world? Disciple, please step back first. Yes. With deep doubts, the young senior brother withdrew from the secondary hall, leaving enough space for Jia Yan and his master. As for the president being unfavorable to his master, it doesn't exist. If his master was so easy to be assassinated or seriously injured, he wouldn't be able to have the status he has today. Your Excellency, how about observing my disciples? When everything around was silent and the palace door was closed, the old man's voice could be heard coming from the main hall, where even the slightest sound of wind seemed to be blocked. His eyes turned to Jia Yan. Jia Yan has been led to the side of a chair specially made for multi-legged creatures. He lay down comfortably and picked up the tea that the other party had given him earlier with his front feet. After taking a slow sip of tea with endless aftertaste, Jia Yan put down the teacup, looked at the old man and said, "Who are you talking about?" "The disciple just now." The old man immediately smiled angrily. "Who else could it be? Do you think that my great disciple is just like the other disciples?" He has reason to say so. A being who has reached the level of a master over 300 years old, let alone in the Milky Way, even in this vast mountainous forest area, is a rare genius, as eye-catching as the shining sun in the sky. Jia Yan asked him who he was asking about. "Are you so disrespectful? It's not bad. He has reached where he is today at such a young age and has a bright future." The old man nodded. "Yes, the future is unlimited. I am not afraid of your ridicule. In this Purple Water sect, many people believe that he is expected to take over my position in the future, and his strength may eventually be similar to or equal to me. The future is really unlimited." Jia Yan saw some kind of ridicule in the other party's smiling eyes. He said bluntly, "This is a good thing, why don't you seem happy?" The old man glanced sideways at Jia Yan, picked up the tea on the table without saying a word, took a sip lightly, closed his eyes and thought about it for a moment. The atmosphere solidified, and he could hear a needle drop before he resumed. "Open your eyes. You people from the outside world should have a guru, or even a super master or above, right?" Jia Yan was silent for a moment, then nodded heavily. In fact, he also discovered this. The masters in this world originally made him look up to the mountains. Everyone is a master, and ordinary residents will grow up to be stars or above. Small creatures may have weaknesses, but under normal growth conditions, they will definitely have the strength to reach the level of a venerable in adulthood. This is not a paradise for the strong, where is it? But after decades of being deeply rooted in the other world, he finally discovered an extraordinary place. That is, the upper limit of strength seems to be locked. Just talking about the base of strong people in the Milky Way, the difference may not be even a little bit different, let alone compared with the continental areas that are still vast and boundless, and it is completely impossible to explore the edges. Comparing it with the Imperial Island, I am afraid that among the population of the entire galaxy, even those at the galaxy level and above will be many times worse than the Imperial Island. Far more than 10 times, it may be 100 times or even thousands of times different. But what about the top master in the galaxy? The number of those in the lower ranks of territory lords is probably greater than that of Imperial Island. And going up the back steps, the existence of the senior level at the top of the galaxy is even more obvious. So far, Jia Yan has not seen, or even heard of, any terrifying peak-level power in the dynasty. Super masters are just a group of masters who are walking backward on the heavenly road. He is definitely stronger than Jia Yan, but not much stronger. He has the talent for subspace and has the ability to instantly enter extremely deep subspaces, so he can escape calmly. So he understood the old man's words. Above a super master. The old man's expression suddenly became miserable, even a little painful. Jia Yan remained silent for a moment, then suddenly said, "Sir, this is the end of the nonsense. Can you tell me the real reason for the meeting?" The old man curled his lips, as if he was annoyed that Jia Yan had ruined all the atmosphere. Okay, let's just say that people from the outside world have no empathy, and I still don't believe in evil. His expression finally returned to the life appearance it should have, instead of pretending to be mysterious and mysterious. His Philistin said, "You know, in our world, at least on our continent, there are countless legends about you and others. Although these legends have become complicated and confusing under time and distance, but unfortunately, I am a person who has experienced the previous era, so I am quite clear about the power and abilities of people from the outside world such as you." Jia Yan nodded noncommittally. Then what? He had known that there would be knowledgeable people in this world. Especially in this area of the mainland, the number of masters from outside the world has doubled. It is impossible for them to turn a blind eye to the visitors from outside the world like the land of the imperial dynasty. And there are also a lot of special products such as weapons and weapons from the outside world collected along the way. In this case, there are people who know the power of the outside world. There is nothing surprising. Then, Your Excellency, President Jia Yan, you are the first outland power to show up. As far as I know, ordinary outside power will not show up easily. And since you are exposed to the sun, you have no idea at all about your true reason for existence and mission. Mission? Reason for existence, these words changed Jia Yan's whole demeanor. My heart skipped a beat, and I suddenly thought of many things. On the surface, he was still calm and composed. He raised his compound eyes to look at the other party, and then asked calmly, "I really don't know this, but I already have some information and guesses. If you can answer my questions, I would really like to thank you. You don't have to pretend. If you weren't a big power, if you weren't a strong man from the past era, I'm afraid it would be impossible to know your information. If you want to investigate, you can only get some scraps of information at most. It's impossible to guess. To practical reasons." Jia Yan sighed softly. "Tell me what you want before telling me. Don't open your mouth like a lion. It's just a piece of information. I believe that if you investigate by yourself, it won't take long for the truth to come to light." "That's true. Seeing that you are collecting objects from other foreign masters along the way, it probably won't be too long before you can guess something. Well, I want you to have a same level weapon when you fight against some foreign masters in the future. How about flesh and blood? The same level of flesh and blood. It is also the body of a lower level domain master." The abnormality in Jia Yanfu's eyes became even more intense, and he said with a hint of coldness in his lazy eyes, "Your Excellency, you have a very strong tone. Do you know that the corpse of the same level means that you want to kill a guru-level master? I won't say whether I can do it, but if I have the body of such a master, why should I give it to you? Wouldn't it be better to study it myself or use it for other purposes? After all, just like the powerful people in the world among you, the body of a truly top master is also a top material that can be encountered but cannot be obtained for us in the outer world. This is true. Even if Jia Yan simply uses the flesh and blood of a person of the same level as a blood-sucking material, he can enhance his own strength to varying degrees, let alone the actual use of a top master's body, which is to dissect it for scientific and technological institutions and use it in various places. Much more effective than simply using it to devour it. This point is quite difficult for Jia Yan to give up. Now there is a person who wants to exchange a few words of information for the flesh and blood of a strong man. It is simply a wishful thinking. Hey, Your Excellency, Jia Yan is on that island called Dynasty. Killing people of the same level is like eating and drinking water. Presumably even among the masters from the outside world, you should be a higher level existence among the same level. Besides, Jia Yan, you don't have to reject it so simply. Please believe my words. In the future, your chance of obtaining the body of a master from outside will be far greater than you think." Through these words, Jia Yan thought of something again, and his eyes became serious. What information did this old man have, and why did he say that he would definitely get the bodies of many masters from the outside world? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3243. The meaning revealed in it is terrifying to think about. Okay, but here's the ugly thing. If it weren't for me and my Chamber of Commerce, I wouldn't be able to give you the body of a powerful man that I and my Chamber of Commerce can't use. And you have to tell me the reason why you want to get the body of a powerful man from the outside world no matter what. To me. A hint of joy flashed across the old man's expression, and he stabilized his mind before saying, "What's so difficult about this? I can tell you now that the masters from the outside world are just like you waiting to search in our inner world. Like all kinds of promotion paths, it is an extremely tonic. The only overtime master in our sect was promoted to the super master after he obtained the bodies of several masters from other realms in the history of the previous era." Class. Jia Yan asked with a half smile, "So you want to borrow the body of an outside master to be promoted to a super master? You are so careless that you only use mere words in exchange for promotion opportunities." President Jia Yan is joking. Even if the physical bodies of foreign masters like you are of great benefit to us, you don't think that just a physical body can make us greatly improved, right? Cultivation is like water grinding time, let alone me. I just want to get a chance to wait for master level masters. Maybe in the future, I will have the opportunity to obtain a few more bodies of masters from other realms like you. Jia Yan chuckled and said, "I hope you won't set your sights on me by then." The old man suddenly became serious. "This is absolutely impossible. Your Excellency, Jia Yan's subspace ability has also appeared in the wars of previous eras. I was fortunate enough to have witnessed the fighting method of that top master. To be honest, if we let I guess, I am afraid that you now have the confidence to protect yourself in the face of super masters, right? Otherwise, you would not dare to come to my Purple Water sect as a guest today. This old man is quite capable." Jia Yan did not feel embarrassed or frightened at all by the other party. Instead, he used his brainwave power to pour himself a cup of tea, put it into his mouth and sucked it in. After a while, he relaxed and said, "Okay, I have promised you things, and I believe that you have made it impossible for me to break the contract easily, so I will not guarantee anything. You can tell me now, what you have mastered about the so-called last era. What's the information?" The old man followed suit and took a sip of tea. "You masters from the outside world, the inner world you call it, is not nature, but a big hand controlling your entry. Do you believe this?" Jia Yan was really shocked this time. The information from the clone was not compiled into the real body, so when he was suddenly faced with such information that made him counterintuitive, even though Jia Yan was mentally prepared, he was still shocked and a little exposed. "Sure enough, this is surprising information. I wonder if you can say anything else to support it? I won't believe this simple statement." Jia Yan finally reacted. He said with some uncertainty, "Actually, the truth does not require too much investigation, because what I said is the truth, and after saying these words, you can combine it with the intelligence you have obtained, and you can easily determine whether what I said is true or false." Jia Yan was non-committal. In fact, after a while, he had combined the sentence with the various clues he had obtained along the way, and quickly came to the conclusion that if this was true, then many of the clues he had grasped would make sense. The masters from the outer world were sent here by some invisible force, and they had fought fiercely in the inner world. Those relics are evidence. Please continue talking. Jia Yan put down the teacup and stared at the old man. Seeing that he finally looked at him, the old man became calm and calm. He slowly drank the tea in his hand, pouring as much tea as to Jia Yan into his stomach, and poured another cup for himself and Jia Yan. At this time, he said as steadily as Mount Tai, every 10,000 or tens of thousands of years, you masters from the outside world will enter our inner world under the guidance of some kind of force. At first, the local residents in our inner world will, because of your body, will look down on you, and then you will grow up in the secret that we cannot notice, and eventually form a force that no one can ignore. But even so, generally speaking, the other world still has the foundation to suppress you, but this will only happen if there are no geniuses among you. The old man seemed to have recalled something, his expression slightly bitter. Those are the real geniuses. I ask myself that in this world, they are also among the first-class geniuses. However, in the last era, I was still shocked by many geniuses among you. Maybe those geniuses from outside the world and become masters are at the same time as me. But they have no upper limit, and I, after reaching the guru level, the progress is like a snail, and there is no hope of promotion at all, but they are able to advance all the way in the time visible to the naked eye, surpass me, surpass Supermaster, and finally reach the level of the legendary mythical powerhouse. Mythical powerhouse. Jia Yan pondered. Could it be the strength of the Galaxy Summit? Is it the strength of Tais Hang Sr.? Okay, Your Excellency has said so much. You don't just want to praise the geniuses. Even those geniuses, this president thinks that he is not inferior to them. Please stop showing off and tell me the information I want. Bring it on. When the old man heard that Jia Yan was so confident, he couldn't help but look him over again. He wanted to make some sarcastic remarks, but from Jia Yan's expression and confidence, he could vaguely see some of his former face, and he immediately smiled. Don't say it out loud. He shook his head and said, I seriously suspect that you masters from the outer realm were sent to our world unconsciously just for the opportunity to be promoted, and the ones who sent you in should be the top masters from the outer realm, and the real geniuses. You will also know about it, but I don't know if you are a genius, or if there are no masters of mythology in the galaxy you are in, so you really naturally entered this world by mistake. Jia Yan hesitated to speak. He was not sure whether the so-called mythical master was the power at the top of the galaxy. If someone who has surpassed the peak of the galaxy can be called a mythical master, then naturally the strength of the Supreme Senior cannot be counted among them. So it's hard to make excuses. Just think that I entered by mistake, but what advice do you have? So he simply admitted that there might be no one behind him. The old man realized that Jia Yan was not faking it and was silent for a while. He told Jia Yan the facts this time, and it was also a kind of test. If he was right, the so-called inner world was just used by the top masters of the outer domain as a touchstone to cultivate the top masters under their own influence. Place. To put it bluntly, if they were not attached to the banner of a top genius, and the incident of the arrival of masters from outside the world was getting more and more intense, I am afraid that another trial would have begun. No matter how strong their purple water sect was, and how many supermasters were in charge, it would be possible. At a critical moment, tens of thousands of years of accumulated work will be wiped out overnight. Anyway, this was what he witnessed in the last era. He was expecting the master of myths from the other world to show up and drive away all the outsiders, but he never came. He also recognized the reality. If the test shows that Jia Yan really may have a big backing, then their Zishui sect can also be a favor and help him obtain various opportunities as much as possible, which can also be regarded as giving themselves more self-protection backing in the future. But Jia Yan may not have the support of a master behind him, which means that even if he is really talented, he is likely to be knocked down when competing with top geniuses for the final opportunity. Is it worth it? That's all, just keep it pretty friendly. There is a master over there, he must be the top of your power, right? After the two parties discussed some core cooperation contents, Jia Yan looked thoughtfully in a direction not far behind the hall. Yes, Your Excellency Jia Yan can actually feel the presence of the great elder of our section. It seems that I was right. Your strength is probably not considered weak among the geniuses in the outside world. Jia Yan didn't express any praise for this person. He just moved towards the place where he felt the aura, and hugged his feet respectfully to show his respect. After the tea time, Jia Yan was happily sent off to the foot of the mountain by several disciples with relatively high status. "Sir, what are you doing with them? We'll talk about it later." Jia Yan signaled to the captain of the Chamber of Commerce guard, who came up to ask him to leave first. Everyone in the caravan understood the situation, drove the carriage, and left the place where the Purple Water sect was located. Purple Water sect is worthy of being the largest section. The strength of a sect depends not only on their superficial strength, but also on their foundation. I can feel that the other party has a lot of hidden strength behind the sect's superficial strength. The strength was not shown. Jia Yan exhaled a long breath in the carriage compartment. If we say that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's foundation is its yin and yang Dao methods, as well as the many technological combat techniques brought in by technological civilization, then the major local powers such as the Purple Water sect, apart from those extremely old masters with unfathomable strength, what they have are many methods within their own sect. Just now, Jia Yan clearly felt that even his subspace techniques were vaguely restricted. I can't say whether it can trap him, but at least it can have a slight delay effect, and this amount of time is enough for a top expert to do a lot of things. However, Jia Yan is not afraid. He also has the defensive methods of yin and yang Dao. Generally speaking, even if the opponent is a super master, in Jia Yan's view, he is just a being who is more than 60 steps beyond the heavenly path. It is stronger than him, but it is absolutely impossible to be several times stronger. In other words, it is difficult to quickly break the tortoise shell of the yin-yang formation he has mastered, and it still cannot trap him. But staying away from dangerous places is the instinct of every strong person. I see, sir. If this is true, then we need to tell the people at the base camp quickly. Maybe during the period of our departure, other people from other lands will attack the empty Imperial Island base camp. Maybe. When the domain master who was responsible for the position of captain of the guards for Jia Yan's trip heard Jia Yan's words, he was immediately frightened. The problem now is how to effectively convey the message. We are too far away from the island. The other master's face fell. You must know that on the Imperial Island, the entire Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has long been operating as the headquarters of the other world. Many people came here with their families, and many of them did the same. If something went wrong on the dynasty's side, it would be an unprecedented blow to their morale. Jia Yan regretted a little and informed his subordinates of this information. It's impossible not to say that, all this requires their cooperation. The so-called war between masters from outside the domain, it is absolutely impossible to win this battle without subordinate forces. Don't worry, I have a method, just wait. Jia Yan crawled down. The entire carriage was immediately enveloped by some kind of force, cutting off any sound. Those subordinates knew that Jia Yan must have some skills, so they all kept silent and waited for the results. Far away from the island dynasty, the avatar Black God, who was meditating cross-legged, was drawing energy from his true body, but this power suddenly became intermittent. He was stunned, and then he closed his eyes with some solemnity, feeling the discontinuity of this power. The existence of the clone must be maintained by absorbing some kind of power that swallows the real body. If it is too far away, such as tens of thousands of light years across, even the clone will not be able to absorb much power. Obviously, no matter how big the world is, at least the distance between Jia Yan and his clone is less than 1 light year away. On the contrary, it is quite fast. The real body released power intermittently, and the clone suddenly felt something. In fact, this is a method that has been agreed upon long ago, just like the telegraph code of the telegraph. Originally, The avatar could also transmit in the reverse direction, but the avatar was not as flexible as the real body in switching and absorbing energy. Even the messages sent back had a serious lag. After many attempts between the two parties, Jia Yan was helpless. Give up. This is also the reason why the previous avatar wanted to contact the real body for many things, but was unable to do so. The current situation can be understood as Yu Kanchu is transmitting information from the real body to the clone in one direction. Is that so? After the Black God clone deciphered the signal information, he went to Shuyuan's expression froze for a moment, and then he stood up abruptly. Come here, tell me my order. Starting today, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce will prepare for war and strictly guard against those soldiers outside the sea. It will also raise the defense level by 2 levels for the underground and the far west and far north. Sir, are you sure you want to do this? It's okay to say that there are overseas invaders, but the underground tribes and the far north and far west have good relations with us. If you do this, it will mean that we have a relationship with them. Trade will be hindered. Don't worry, I have my own say in this matter. As for what can be sold and what can't be sold, I will tell them personally later. Yes. Jia Yan's order is a bit confusing at first glance. Everyone knows that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has gradually become a thorn in the side of the dynasty over the years. The opponent has been criticized by overseas soldiers and harassed by underground tribes. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce should applaud. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3244. But why did the Vice President assassin say such an order? Could it be that he made his own decision? The higher level people still know that the assassin Vice President is one of Jia Yan's clones. The matter is almost semi-public, so they are not worried that the Vice President is up to something evil. I wonder if Mr. Jia Yan, who went to the island, had left some orders long ago. No one knows what the Vice President's intentions are. But this does not prevent them from faithfully executing the order. In fact, more than a month has passed, and the dynasty is now even more dilapidated and on the verge of collapse. Even the princes and ministers in the imperial capital who had not cared much about this matter became anxious at this moment. The two wars invaded by overseas fleets not only did not slow down, but accelerated the pace of the invasion. Many people became refugees and turned into a refugee wave, which caused the economic adjustment of most areas of the entire dynasty and seriously affected production and life. And this also indirectly affected the taxation of the dynasty and the outside business of officials at all levels. As a result, countless suggestions for increasing attention to the Sea Area City Government District began to spread to the court like snowflakes. The Empress Dowager and other core figures in the dynasty quickly noticed the old Prime Minister who had been dealing with the matter for a long time. Is the old Prime Minister really a god? Many people were shocked. At the same time, some people realized later that the old Prime Minister had really anticipated this situation. Otherwise, why would he have started the work of infiltrating the new army and improving the military strength of various places so early? With the new recruits being trained by the old Prime Minister, there is no way Haikao will survive. But several ministers were about to speak but stopped. The Queen Mother saw their expressions and said calmly, "My dear friends, it's okay to speak directly if you have anything to say. Except for those pirates from the outer sea, there are still several battles in our dynasty. Although 2 battles broke out, although they were small battles, our dynasty lost 2 games in a row. Now the border guards are in a hurry. 2 battles? Why has the AI family never heard of this?" The Queen Mother was suddenly surprised and raised her face. A slight look of surprise appeared on her pure face. It's like this. Those 2 defeats were nothing more than ringworm. My subordinates have ordered people to recruit troops locally. It won't take many days to defeat the few small units in the extreme north that dare to attack our imperial army. Therefore, there is no retribution. A minister who had reached the subdivision level came out and said respectfully. Everyone was speechless for a while. Everyone knows that this guy is an extremely corrupt person. He was originally appointed by the Queen Mother to manage the overall planning of the army. However, this person actually swallowed up most of the overall planning reserves and ended up recruiting, not to mention that most of the troops that came were reduced, but the remaining part was still fighting on an empty stomach. The strong men could not even sustain their daily training needs, so they could only make up for it by robbing homes or committing crimes. Loopholes, so the troops in that area have long been rotten. The two defeats were probably not small defeats. This person was afraid of taking responsibility, so he concealed the war in private. Please give me a chance, and I will definitely defeat the small group of extreme northern thieves in that area. The minister looked at everyone's suspicious looks, gritted his teeth and knelt down. The Queen Mother paused, waved her hand and said, "Then I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself and make meritorious service, and go directly to the front line for me." Yes. Seeing this man retreat, all the ministers were speechless again. There have long been rumors that this gentleman who has reached the subdivisional level has an ulterior relationship with the Queen Mother in the backyard of the palace, so he has always been protected by the Queen Mother. Now it seems that it is groundless. The Queen Mother, who was looked at with strange eyes by everyone, could not help but feel a little feverish on her face. After being calm for a moment, she finally said impatiently, "Is there anything else important? If not, just retreat from the court." Yes. The ministers retreated. However, what is even more bizarre is that after this retreat, the biggest reaction in the entire imperial court was not about the major matters discussed in the court today, nor about the invasion of heavy troops by overseas forces, let alone the far north. The land defeated the dynasty twice in a row. Instead, he quickly spread the relationship between the Queen Mother and the important minister, as well as some of the gossip behind it, like crazy. It was as if the entire dynasty still didn't pay attention to the major forces that had already caused the dynasty to be riddled with holes. The people and the upper class, as long as they are not hit on the head, are still living a life of dissipation and extravagance. It's like self-deception. There was only one old man who, although his strength was good, had declined a long time ago. He was running alone on the front line. After finally hearing the information from the imperial court, he remained silent for a long time and couldn't help but sigh. Made a sound. In his entire life, he did not appear too radical when the third generation of emperors passed away, nor did he act impulsively when the young new emperor was killed in the far north. But the Queen Mother controlled Chaogang and almost placed the new emperor under house arrest, and foreign enemies poured out like a tide, but he stood up. After spending his whole life being a coward and hanging out with those so-called dignitaries, he finally chose to stand out and be different. Perhaps, this is the last time in my life that I will be different. Or maybe this difference will make the mediocre life that I have always upheld come to an end. It may also be a death without a burial place, but, I am willing. In life, dying well is also a kind of liberation, he. The old Prime Minister smiled amusedly. In front of him was a group of new soldiers who had just stepped up their training and received better equipment and supplies. They were full of momentum. And not long after, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce announced an embargo on certain war materials from the hostile forces of several major dynasties, which boosted the morale of some people in the dynasties. You must know that since the development of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, it has already become a super-scale chamber of commerce that is different from other merchants, and many of the materials it sells belong to this monopoly industry. For decades, it has become an inseparable part of the dynasty. The companies opened not only in the imperial dynasty, but also in the far north, underground, and far west, etc., have long been inseparable from this unique chamber of commerce. As soon as the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's ban on sales came out, it could be said that one stone stirred up 1,000 waves. Although the banned products were insignificant in a sense, the meaning revealed in them felt profound. Has the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce completely sided with the imperial dynasty? It is true that after all, the turbulent world is the most unfavorable for businessmen. As for the more high-end and thoughtful people, they think more and think that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce should not let go of nothing. This move should have profound meaning. Did you actually win the last battle on the coast? It seems that the dynasty is indeed not a soft-footed shrimp. There are still capable people. At the headquarters of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce in Xiancheng, Black God Jia Yan was slightly surprised after hearing the news from the front line. After all, from their point of view, the dynasty was rotten to the core. In the last confrontation, Jia Yan personally killed several master-level masters. It can be said that both in terms of overall strength and top-level strength, they were at the lowest point in the entire history of the dynasty. Originally, Jia Yan thought that they would work hard and start a period of recovery after decadence. But he had never seen how incomprehensible the so-called end of the government would be. In ancient and modern times, at home and abroad, and even in the world here, they are all the same. No one is looking for serious things. The entire dynasty is still making noises and deceiving themselves. Not only did they not restrain themselves after Jia Yan killed so many masters, there are even many bureaucrats and large forces who are vaguely stretching their hands longer. Yes, corruption has reached unprecedented levels. Jia Yan once lamented that the dynasty would be hopeless if it continued like this. Today, I really saw a unique existence, and this existence was one of the 3 prime ministers of the current dynasty, a high-ranking person known as the old prime minister. It depends on whether this old prime minister can turn the tide and save the dynasty from this decline. Jia Yan ordered to continue and quietly sell some advanced war weapons to the troops in charge of the old prime minister within a limited amount. If he didn't know the intelligence about his true form, he would choose to ignore the overthrow of the dynasty. But if he knew that the Khmer might have invaded the dynasty because of the intervention of other foreign forces, then things would be different. The imperial dynasty was originally a stumbling block to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, but now it has become a natural barrier. Because the ultimate goal of those outsiders is probably the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, or even their group of masters from the galaxy. This is a bit like the law of the Black Forest. No wonder no large-scale external forces have shown their faces before. Our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has become the first prey here to make a sound. One stone stirs up thousands of waves, and may also cause conflicts among those forces in the external areas. The competition officially begins. If he had known this, Jia Yan would never have allowed the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce to develop as it was. It would have been like shouting in the silent woods, "I am here." But there is no regret. Now that I roughly understand what went wrong, I just try to fix it. A few. Just after Jia Yan finished his routine work, he came outside a huge building that exuded a strong aura of strong men. What's wrong? Black God Jia Yan couldn't help but smile a little when he saw the scenery inside. These are a few top masters who stomp their feet in the outside world and can shock the elders of a party. However, here, after the initial shock and discomfort, they quickly began to enjoy life in the other world. They had just entered the world for a while and didn't understand much about the other world. Instead of wasting time, they were reading various books and information about the other world while enjoying this rare life in another world. Several giant creatures were just sitting on the outdoor balcony basking in the sun. Although the strong ones in the galaxy are not unable to do this, they are too eye-catching and have various restrictions. They have not experienced this kind of comfortable feeling in half their lives. But it's different when you come to the other world. You can live in a house the size of a planet. This kind of treatment is nothing compared to how much money you spend in the outside world. The key is that everything, just like the feeling that they have returned to a normal life form, is true freedom in a certain sense. Several of them were drinking drinks and living a leisurely life. It's like this. There have been some changes in the dynasty recently. I may have you waiting to take action at any time. I wonder how many of you are ready. Oh. Fighting against the masters of the dynasty. They have been in this world for a while, and they still know the dynasty's intelligence and even the basic world intelligence. The black god Jia Yan shook his head. It's not the dynasty. The dynasty itself is already crumbling. I am preparing you all to be prepared. There may be other masters from outside the realm coming to provoke or even attack. Outland? Aren't those life forms from other galaxies in the universe? It is said that they are quite inconspicuous. Could there be other existences that can threaten us? Several domain masters and lower-level masters were a little surprised. Black God Jia Yan's face became serious, and he sighed. The intelligence of several people is a little lagging behind. Recent intelligence shows that those existences in the outer realm are the real top forces in the inner world, and behind them there are people who are far superior to us. A master is in charge. Of course, that kind of master usually doesn't take action. The specific situation is more complicated. I'll explain it to you next. The expressions of the experts also became serious. After a cup of tea, Jia Yan gave a general summary of the information he had. So, in this world, at least in this area, the truly top forces should belong to the masters from the outside world. And the gods, could they be powerful beings at the lower level of domain lords? There are such existences in our galaxy, and we have even made good friends with a few of them. If they are that kind of existence, it would be difficult for us to resist them. They talked a lot, but no one asked to leave. Previously, they were not sure whether there was an opportunity in this world, so they. But as soon as this information came out, they immediately understood that there was definitely an opportunity in this world for the masters of the lower realm masters to be promoted. No matter what the masters are fighting for here, or the legends on the mainland, this has been verified. As for danger, of course no one is not afraid of death. But every time a strong person ascends to a level, it is accompanied by risks and opportunities. Those who are unwilling to take any risks will not be able to advance to their level. Therefore, they are only excited about possible opportunities, but do not have too much fear. Since you are willing to take action, let us allocate some. The next battle between the dynasties will probably be an earth-shaking decisive battle. I am afraid that once the dynasty cannot withstand it, those foreign forces will go all out to deal with me and others. By then we will also the only way to withdraw from the other world is to make resistance almost impossible. It is absolutely impossible for the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, supported by a trade zone, to withstand the army of the other world. Don't worry, since we are joining forces, we will do our best.